Started. All right, day 2, Marketing Spotlight 2021. All sounds very grand. Hope you guys are having a lovely morning. Those that joined yesterday, hope you had some good takeaways from that. Like I said just before, those that are here when they first signed in, recordings for that will go out on Tuesday, hopefully, barring any tech issues. So you can catch up with that if you didn't see it, or you can rewatch it if you did. And welcome to those that are joining us for day 2. Up first is Felicity Sandford, who is quite well known in our sector. And she'll chat about herself in a second. You guys may have seen her talk for ICAP before. And today her focus is Instagram, which, as we know, is continuing to boom, take over the world along with Facebook. That's either it's probably a terrible thing, but for our businesses, it's obviously an important thing. But yeah, I'm going to hand over to Felicity, give my voice a rest, and let her do her thing. So Felicity, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. Instagram, tell us all about it.
Okie doke, let me share the screen, everyone. Looking forward to going through this with you all, because yes, as Andy says, it really is the booming social media platform at the moment, and it's not one to ignore any longer. So most of you, well, I think from the people I can see anyway, might know me already. I run Leap Networking with Andy, which is a Facebook group for children's activity providers, and I run a social media and marketing consultancy and agency for children's activities and services. I will just a little bit. I'm conscious that we probably have people of varying sort of experiences of Instagram at the moment. So apologies if some of it, is a bit basic, and if some of you have done, been on presentations with me before, there might be a little bit of repetition. But and I'm just conscious that there's probably people coming from different places, people that are perhaps brand new to Instagram. So I want to get sort of everyone, from the same place. So just a little bit about Instagram and the kind of stats it's getting these days. For ages in this market, I mean, I've been working with children's activity providers now since about 2013, 2014, and specifically with activity providers for the last 4 years. So in the first few years, even when I started running Amazing Futures as an agency, sort of in 2017, there was it was really Facebook. Everyone, I would always say to the clients and to anyone that I was chatting to in the industry, Facebook's where you need to be, and don't worry too much about the other platforms. Well, that has really changed, and now Instagram is often the place that a lot of parents will go to first, as the demographics sort of mature on Instagram, which we'll talk about a bit later, and as obviously people are, parents are now have grown up with Instagram. So if your target market's are kind of under 35, then you're more likely to be able to reach them on Instagram perhaps than on Facebook. So these are the kind of stats. You'll get the slides afterwards to sort of digest these, but 1 billion monthly annual users on Instagram, 95 million photos uploaded every day. This is of course around the world, but Britain is a heavy user of Instagram, so you can sort of pretty much safely bet that high proportion of these are in the UK. 500 million people use stories daily, so stories are still very heavily used. There wasn't this data is actually from a well-known social media analytics site, Adspresso, and it was at end of January 2021 that this came out, but they didn't yet have any stats on Reels, I think because there hasn't been a full year that people have been really using them, so it's not really meaningful data. But Reels has obviously taken off in a big way in the last year as well. The average Instagram user will spend 32 minutes a day on the app. Now that's just average, so you're taking out people that don't really use it much at all, but a lot of people will spend hours a day on it, especially the younger people. 63% of users will check the app at least twice a day. 57% of 25 to 30-year-olds and 47% of 30 to 49-year-olds use Instagram, and that's sort of getting older, more mature all the time. 27 million Instagram users in the UK. That's 42% of our population have an Instagram account, and 90% of the world's top brands now will have an Instagram account. So that's getting to the kind of territory where 20 years ago, people would sort of think, if you're kind of an established company, why don't they have a website? And then it became, well, why don't they have a Facebook page? And it's getting into the territory now where people will be starting to sort of, especially if you're a franchise business or a bigger business with several branches, to be a bit like, well, why haven't they got a website? So why haven't they got an Instagram account? So we're kind of getting there. I don't think, it's 100% essential at the moment, but we're getting into that territory. So it's something to be aware of. Something about the algorithm, the dreaded algorithm, which we love to hate. It's a bit of a techie word, and people get sort of quite fearful of it. It's basically just a set of rules and calculations that helps social media platforms decide what content to serve out to the user, to sort of decide on the kind of content that you see. And this can be based on a number of variables. What you look at will educate the algorithm to what you want to see in the future. So the more you look at a certain page or even a friend's sort of profile, or comment on a friend's or a business's profile, the more that you're going to see their content. So that's why you want engagement. That's why engagement is the thing that you really want to get. You don't worry about, you really shouldn't be worrying about vanity metrics really, and the number of likes you've got. It's all followers. That's all about, you want to get people that are actually interested in what you do, rather than your great Aunt Susie and your cousin in Australia, who doesn't really give a fig, but wants to just politely accept your invitation to like or to follow, or just follows you out of interest and nosiness, but it doesn't actually ever comment, and isn't actually interested, and isn't your target customer at the end of the day. So so that's why people bang on about engagement all the time, because the more your target sort of audience is commenting or liking, sharing your posts, the more the more that they're going to see that content, but also it's going to be shown to other people like them. And obviously, if that's your target customer, you want other people like them. So it's no good someone that's totally irrelevant commenting all the time. I mean, it's better than nothing. It helps the algorithm a little bit, but it does mean that it's not helping Instagram sort of decide who to show your content to. So it's based on your interests, activities, and your interactions on the platform. Most social media platforms are now using algorithm. LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. Facebook and Instagram being particularly algorithm orientated. Twitter is still chronological at the moment, so that's that goes so quickly that you have to be tweeting all day long, from what I can see, to really get your content seen there. So I don't really suggest that Twitter is probably where most of you will want to be, unless you love Twitter for fun. The idea of this challenge, so what we're going to do now, so I'm just going to talk about at the end, I'm going to this sort of talk is going to basically bring you up to speed of the basics of getting onto Instagram. It's not the be all and end all. I can't spend hours talking about reels or how to craft a story and that kind of thing, because that's that's a 6 to 8 week course. But what I can do is give you the basics of getting your content together, and we're going to really sort of cement this in a challenge at the end, which is a 10-day challenge. There's going to be a graphic that you'll get sent to you, and it's going to give you a content theme for every day for 10 days, and that's up to you. You can make that a grid, a story, a reel. I would suggest mixing it up, at least between stories and grid posts, if you're not confident with reels yet, but give reels a go if you want to. And you'll use a specific hashtag, and we'll all follow that hashtag, and you'll tag myself in, and at Amazing Futures Limited, my company, and at Children's Activity Providers, and then everyone can sort of follow each other's content and engage with each other. And it'd be a nice way for us to get to know each other's businesses, but also it's a really good habit to form, that to have accountability, to post every day, and to, if any of you watched Sarah's talk yesterday, she talked about something that's very close to my heart, which is the kind of 20-80 rule. I mean, you'll see that the actual percentages and that vary. Sometimes people say 1/3 sales content. I think that's too much. 2/3 non-sales content. So we'll talk about that a bit more later. So the idea of this challenge as well is to stop you just posting about yourselves and selling at people all the time. being that double glazing salesman that, you know, nobody really wants to get to know that much, because you're like selling in their face all the time. So more about that at the end. And so yeah, basically the more engagement you get, the more the algorithm will start pushing out your content in the future. So we really want to get your content valuable, interesting, entertaining, and you know, and stuff that people want to look at. So yeah, so here, oops, can you see that as a full screen now, Andy? Have I messed that up?
No, you're good. I can see it.
Yeah, is that all right? So let me push this out of the way. So yeah, so this is just a little pointer. There's some notes when you get the slides sent to you underneath it. You can't view them at the moment because I've got it on slideshow. But these are sort of little things to be aware of with the algorithm. Is, you know, the frequency of posts, you know, people's interests, the timeliness, the time of day that you're posting, other people that are following you, the amount that you use it, and the amount that they use the platform, and their relationship to you. So those are all factors in the algorithm as well, and you can read a bit more about that in the notes when you get the slides. So Instagram is a much higher maintenance platform than Facebook. So when I'm doing social media management retainers for clients, I always charge, or any social media manager that's doing it properly will charge you more for running Instagram than Facebook. I personally put a lot more time and energy into Instagram and Facebook these days, because the page is, you know, it's quite hard work. It tends to be a lot of duplicating content, but with some, you know, there's other stuff you can do. Obviously, you share blog articles onto your Facebook page and some relevant news articles, especially the sort of local news, such as an event you're involved with and stuff like that. So there is sort of different stuff you will share on your Facebook page. Not going into that now because this is Instagram, but suffice to say that Instagram, you know, it's more high maintenance because people really care a lot more about what it looks like. Your brand is much more visible on an Instagram platform than it is on a Facebook page. You know, on a Facebook page, it's a series of links and whatever, and you can get away with averagey images and that sort of thing. Whereas, you know, on Instagram, especially on the grid in particular, you know, you want it to look nice and you want some sort of semblance of the brand. So if you go onto the ICAP Instagram children's activity providers, you'll see that we use a lot of colors from the logo and that kind of thing. There's a lot of the brand on there. We sometimes use images on their own. You don't always have to have a completely stylized post. You know, some people do these puzzle feeds and stuff like that. I'm not a big fan of them. I think they look quite nice, but they're anything that stops you being a bit more in the moment, and you know, it feels a bit artificial to me, because you just always got to worry about what post comes next and whether it fits in with the one before. I think Instagram should be a little bit more free-flowing than that, but on the other hand, it is really nice to have some sort of, so people go on your grid. It's like, you know, that first sort of 20 seconds when they're making a decision about you and whether they want to follow and whether you're a brand that they resonate with. It's nice to sort of have your brand quite visible on there. So things to check really quickly before you start this challenge, and just in general, is that your bio is up to date. You know, do make sure things like, you know, are you saying that you're doing online classes when now you're back in person? Make sure all those things are up to date. You know, if you've got the venue wrong, you've only got a small amount of space in a bio, so shouldn't need updating too longer. All links working well. There's only actually one link in Instagram. Some people do use Linktree. I'm not a massive fan of Linktree because I think it just distracts people when you're sending them to somewhere else, and you're kind of just adding an extra step in that kind of customer journey. So, you know, a lot of people do use Linktree, and then you just bombard people with a bunch of different links. And I just don't think Instagram users have that kind of concentration span. So I think if you're using Linktree, obviously you need to make sure that all links are working, because sometimes people just ping links on there and leave them up there forever. And, you know, there could be broken links on there, which is even worse. But if you just, you know, going to your home page, I would go to your home page or a sales page rather than just a booking link. You know, people want to you know, read a bit more about you and get to know you a bit. You know, they're still going on that kind of sales train, getting to, you know, like and trust you a bit. So, and social media is a really important part of that. But then if they're going onto your website, that's the next stage, and then after that you'd hope that they make contact. So yeah, make sure that that's all correct. You can only have one active link in Instagram, as you probably know. on the grid. If you post any links, it will just come as text, which you could ask people to copy and paste, but it's just not as user friendly as I would like that to be. But I think they have their reasons. Probably it helps them get more advertisers. But you can change the bio link. So if you want to promote a blog, you just say you do a post about it and say link in bio. So you can make that fairly dynamic and change it around if you want to, but otherwise I would just choose a really good landing page and link to that. Make sure your website telephone numbers are all up to date. Use high quality images. Stories image quality is not so essential. You can really play around a lot more with stories. It's a lot more relaxed. So a lot more people have music on at the moment. You might have noticed that you can now do music on stories if you've got a business account. Before it was only creator accounts. So that's quite fun. So yeah, really do just have a bit of fun with stories. They're not as good for growing as your following as they used to be. Nothing ever stays the same in Instagram or social media in general. They are now mainly showing stories to your following. So as before, you used to use a hashtag and they would group them, and send it out to new people. That's it isn't happening as much, but it's still a great way of communicating to your existing following. A little bit of homework from here, if optional homework, if you haven't done a story before, just go into where your profile photo is, click that plus button, it will give you create. You can upload a photo from your camera roll. Feel free to give me a shout at the end, anyone will ask any questions about this, either if there's time at the end or pinging me an email to help you before the challenge. But if you want to have a practice before the challenge, feel free after this, take a photo during the session if you want, or it can be anything that you've done in the last few days. Do a story afterwards, tag me in at ICAP at Children's Activity Providers, because I run that as well, so I'll see it. Either of those, tag those, and I can sort of look at your story, give feedback, and share it as well. So so that's just something to sort of give you a bit of confidence before we start the challenge. This is just I always use these. They are examples of feeds, quite branded, so just so you can sort of see. This is the digital mums who I did my social media consultancy training with, and you can really if you're not familiar with the brand, then perhaps it's not so obvious, but you can sort of tell what their brand colors are. They use those a lot in their grid, and they sort of balance those with monochrome images and very sort of energetic, happy sort of photos. And even in some of the images, they're bringing in their kind of brand colors. You can see the pink sofa with a dog on it as well, and the lady lying down. So it's a really branded grid, without being too restrictive. So they're not going, I will only do a quote every 5 posts or something. They've done 2 kind of text posts in a row. They're mixing up the color and the monochrome images, so it's still really flexible. That's what I like about this one. But they have definitely got a branded look to their grid. So it's not something that you need to really stress about too much. You can just use a bit of your brand colors and stuff and just get a little bit of a sense of your brand on there. And this is another one. It's very sort of arty. It's not sort of immediately sort of relevant to us in the activity industry, but you can just sort of see how they just sort of run through their grid in a very sort of pastel color. So they're using sort of colors as a theme. So you can choose to do that. Not everyone, it's not right for everyone. I don't, personally, I use a lot of my teal green, on the grid, and in ICAP we use a lot of the brand colors as well, but we're not really fussy about every single image, being the sort of same sort of color, because I just think that's a bit too high maintenance. And here you can sort of see, we talked about Canva a bit. This is an example of how activity providers often think, oh my goodness, I can't do Instagram because I can't get many photographs, I don't get photo permission, it's too much hassle, it's too stressful, and all this kind of thing. And yeah, I mean, obviously it's really nice to have pictures of the kids in your class, and obviously if you can do anything to show your classes in action, that's really what you want, because you want to show behind the scenes and stuff. That's a really important part of Instagram, especially in this field. It's sort of like a customer service thing as well, because it's not just about getting new customers, it's about a lot of your existing customers will follow you and enjoy seeing what their kids are up to, if it's a drop-off class, or even if they go there as well, just as memories. But you can mix it up with things like text images, with quotes, with tips, things like this. Using your brand colors and stuff like that, and that just you can create evergreen kind of content libraries this way. That's what also Sarah was talking about yesterday, is the content buckets, or I call them content buckets, she calls them topic buckets. But you can just get down a piece of paper and think, well, what can I talk about? Say your drama class, sort of the topics could be like confidence, and dance, and stage shows, and love of theatre, and that kind of thing, and verbal skills, and projection, voice projection, singing, that kind of thing. And then you can find quotes and stuff about that, or tips about it, and use them on graphics, and then just you just sort of batch them up, and then you've got content to go to, so you're not always sort of stressing about what you're going to post next. Some more ideas for content. Ask people questions, that often gets more engagement. Ask questions that let people talk about themselves. Like new mums, they love to talk about their birth story, or how tired they are, or how their baby's sleeping, or mums that are starting the weaning process like to talk about that. Mums whose or dads, I suppose, I mean, a bit sexist, whose children are starting school, might want to talk about how their child has settled in. So get questions where people can talk about themselves and their child a bit, and just join in, or and give their experiences, and then that you creating more of a community with your social media then, and getting engagement back as well, which is really good. And always reply to everyone that answers. Always do some sort of little reply to acknowledge them, because that also counts in your engagement. And the more you're engaging, the more Instagram will think, oh, this is a good post, people are interested, and start showing it out to more people. So statements, things like your tips, your sort of your views on things as well. Quotes, as we've said, this could be inspirational quotes. If you've got it could be, if you're a drama, a famous actor, if you're a sports club, a famous sports star, could have a motivational quotes. It could be things like that, or it can be parents quotes about parent experiences. Do some empathy stuff as well, that works really well with parents. Tips, again, tips about your activity. Tips if you run like a preschool music class or art class, and tips of how things you do in class could be done at home, and stuff like that. Recipes, perhaps, if that's relevant. Not, I wouldn't be going out posting recipes every day if you're you're not a cookery school, but you might have a favorite recipe that your children loved, and sort of said, oh, I just thought I'd post this, and be helpful on a on a kind of a more social type post. But I wouldn't be, as I say, if it's not particularly relevant to your activity, it's not something that you'd be doing all the time, but now and again you could post something like that. Something topical, something related to something non-controversial in the news. And hashtags we'll talk about in a bit, but they can help your content still, although it's not as much as it used to be. So top tips here, there's more notes in this, just to say, when you get the slides, definitely look at Canva. It's fantastic. You can do loads for free on it. I mean, I really think it's worth paying the £108 a year, whatever it is, because with that you get a magic resize, so you can change the size of the image from Instagram to make it more Facebook friendly. You don't always have to do that for a Facebook page, but depending on the type of post, and if there's a lot of text, it might look better, and you might want to add text because you can get more in it to the Facebook post. On that note, do make sure when you're posting Instagram, it's a perfect square. Canva will tell you, if you click on create an Instagram post, it will give you the right size. I see a lot of people using thin rectangular things, and I see lots of activity providers posting things like flyers on their grid, and or other stuff with loads of text that isn't fitting into the square nicely with space around the text, and then it chops bits of text out and it just looks awful. So and it looks quite unprofessional, so really try to avoid doing that. So follow the best practice design principles, like I've just said. Space around logo, but space around text and stuff like that. Canva has loads of information on this. It's actually got a bit of a sort of a free training school in there, so really you can go in and go into help, and it will give you videos or blog articles about it. So it's a really super helpful tool to use. My advice is to create in bulk, look ahead. So look at, I have a content planner. I do content planning sessions as well with clients, sort of monthly, looking ahead to the month and looking at the awareness days, how you can we sort of brainstorm how you can use that and make it relatable. So I don't really agree with just posting every awareness day going, because I think that can get a bit tedious, but if you can make it relevant and relate it back to your business, then it's brilliant. And then you've got these sort of trending hashtags, topical hashtags to use. But also just look ahead to times you're going to be busy, start of term, and end of term when you're sort of really busy getting stuff ready, or if you're going to be on holiday and you've got kids at home and that sort of thing, and have this what I call a content library. Just have a folder on your hard drive or in your cloud, and just have a whole bank of content in there, so you can just go out and schedule and and take the pressure off yourself. So yeah, on to scheduling. I do think Instagram, requires a bit of in the moment posting, because it's good to engage. With Instagram, they always say it's best to go on and engage for 10 minutes or so, go on your feed and, engage with people that you're following and their posts that come up. They're more likely then to engage back to you, and it just sort of, it just makes you get on the right side of the algorithm, basically, because you're a community member rather than someone that's sort of posting and running off straight away. So yeah, but do schedule stuff, like I say, for busy times, just to take that pressure off a bit. So hashtags, this is something that really confuses people, and hopefully will you'll get a bit more confident about this if you do the 10-day challenge with me. So you want to make sure hashtags are relevant to your post, and preferably your image as well. So you've noticed now that people can follow hashtags. That's happened in the last sort of 18 months, but they can also report the hashtag as they don't want to see this this content, this user behind this hashtag anymore. So that's, so if, say, you were I don't know, posting a lot, and you just knew you're posting about your ballet school, whatever, but that there's a local hashtag called Hamwell Runners or something. That's where I live, and you just think, I'll use that hashtag because loads of people follow it. Well, people would start reporting that and saying, I don't want to see this content with this hashtag, because they're not looking for ballet when they go and search that hashtag, or they're following that hashtag. They're looking for stuff about running. So just because it's a really popular hashtag, if it's not relevant to your content, then you shouldn't be using it, because eventually, and before not very long, Instagram will start to think you're spamming. So that's a big red flag to the algorithm then. So yeah, keep it relevant. Don't use the same hashtag all the time. I know a lot of people tend to just have like 10 or 20 favorite hashtags. They copy and paste them. I always use completely different hashtags. There will be some overlap, like, for example, when I'm doing the ICAP socials, I nearly always use hashtag children's activity providers, but I occasionally won't use it, just to give it a break. But I really want the content for ICAP to be showing up in there, and same for sometimes for my own content. So but I don't then just use 9 other hashtags the same. So I will make sure that there's hashtags that relate directly to the image, relate directly to the caption and what I'm talking about, what the post is about. So really make sure you're varying them. It does take a little bit more time and effort, but it really does pay off. Go for a mixture of popular and less popular, sector specific and local. So there's no point using hashtags that have been used millions of times. If you go into the hashtags, sorry, if you go into sort of view a topic, so you click on a hashtag, just if you've got your phone, have a quick look now. If you click on something like children's activity providers or London Mums or something, you will see that it gives you 2 options. It's the all-time top hashtags, and then there's recent. So what that means is, top is ones that have really done well. They could have, it could have been posted months ago, but they've got loads of engagement. And recent is obviously things that's chronological then. So if you're using a really popular hashtag, such as London Mums, isn't too bad actually, but is a very popular one. It's not going to stay there. You're not very likely to get under top. If it's UK Mums, for example, it's going to whiz straight down the recent feed as well. So, and also, it's not all going to be relevant people. And at the end of the day, what's the point really? You want to get relevant people. So, I mean, if for the whole country, when you just need sort of local people. So you could use it occasionally, but I would mix it up, use some local hashtags, again, relevant though, not for a different, it's completely different topic. But, if you say you live in, I don't know, Brighton, it could be like Brighton mums, Brighton families, and do that sort of thing, a Brighton business, all that kind of thing, you know, and just mix up different ones. And then when you type, if you're doing it on your phone, it will give you suggestions of other ones. And then there are hashtag tools you can use, like right tag, hashtagify, and there's one called Flick as well, which is more expensive. But they're really good for suggesting hashtags, and you can get free versions of them, so play around with a few different ones. If you just go into your app store, or your whatever it's called, an Android Play Store, it will you know, and put in hashtags, it will give you a few options. So I would just try a few different ones because people like different things. Like I say, 5 to 30 per post you can use. I mean, I would say minimum of 5, maximum of 30. You don't have to use 30. There is this urban legend on Instagram that if you use 30, it's spammy and Instagram doesn't like it. That's complete nonsense. I've asked Instagram themselves when I was at a Facebook event in Dublin, and they said, no, if we don't want you to use more, didn't want you to use 30, we wouldn't let you. So if you try and use 31, you won't be able to. So you can use up to 30. And that's fine if you know you've got the time to do that. Obviously, it's more ways of people finding you. But recent research that I was actually just reading yesterday is that 9 to 15 is best, with 11 being the magic number, and that comes from Social Media Marketing World, which is a big conference that goes on in California every year for social media professionals, which I hope to go to one day. So yeah, I'm going to try 11 actually. I'm going to test that. As with everything in social media, Instagram is very much about test, reflect and refine. So you never have it 100%, not even the biggest Instagram or social media expert in the world has it 100%. Even, you know, people that specialize only in Instagram will always be having to test new things, you know, and finding that things that used to work for them didn't work for them anymore. So don't get disheartened. It's not that you're rubbish. It's not that, you know, you're doing things wrong per se. It's just that's what Instagram's like, and social media is like. It's so dynamic. That's why there's people like me that you know, focus on this full time. So you know, if you're running a business that's completely you know, nothing to do with social media, then it's difficult. But you know, just keep testing and you'll get there, and you'll progress. So yeah, those were the hashtag tools I recommend: right tag, hashtag expert, and hashtagify. But there's also this Flick one. I think that's £50 to £100 a year, but it's a really good one apparently. I'm yet to use it myself, but social media managers all over the place keep recommending it. So avoiding the sinkhole of time in social media. I mean, you could literally spend all day doing social media, you know, for your business. You know, you could be on every platform everywhere, you know, and constantly posting and engaging and stuff like that. But obviously you don't really have the time, and it's not a good use of your time either. So quick tips for that, like I was saying before: plan and batch your content, get graphics done, get your content library. I would block out a time every week to avoid distractions. So instead of just ad hoc doing it now and then, just plan all your content, get it scheduled, get the graphics done, decide what you're doing, and say block out 2 hours on a Sunday evening or Monday morning or whatever is a good time for you around your classes. And that helps avoid distractions. And it also just means that you've done it out of the way, especially if you don't love social media. It's just like a nice relief to have done it out of the way, and you know, it takes the pressure off knowing that stuff's going out. And then if you see something that you want to share in the meantime, great, that's extra content, but just know that you've got this minimum sort of several posts a week going out, to keep up your consistency. Repurpose your content, even from a few years ago, if it works. Oops, sorry, I've just realized I've repeated myself there. So there you go, I repurposed my line there. So yeah, you'll notice a lot of the big sort of publications like the BBC, you know, news networks, they you know, they post the same articles several times, you know, and sometimes within a few weeks. You're a bit like, I just read that a few weeks ago. But sometimes they'll post articles, you know, evergreen articles from a year ago or something like that, or an article that was topical then, and then becomes topical again because of a new news item, that, you know, an opinion article or something. So you know, even the big players, they do that. So don't worry about, you know, using a great piece of content that you did you know, a few years ago, repost it. Perhaps, you know, maybe you use the caption but use a different image. It is slightly better to use different images on Instagram if you can. So, you know, you can use the same caption but a slightly different version of the image. You know, if you've got a blog article, you can repost that if it's sort of evergreen content that hasn't dated. And yeah, and just you know, do some throwback Thursdays as well, and from posting what you did, you know, and all that kind of thing. So yeah, save yourself some time, you know, stop trying to reinvent the wheel all the time. And I think we've talked about Canva enough, so there we go. So now on to my Instagram challenge, just checking how I'm doing for time. So this is what it's going to look like. Some of you may have done an Instagram challenge before, you know, with me. So if you have, then you know, you don't have to join, but it would be great to have you back. I have tried to change it. There might be one or two that are the same or similar, but I have tried to change it from ones I did, because I did one with Leap Networking a while back. I've also done one with Keris Canelli. So yeah, with, you know, with Keris's group. So that was just a VIPs though. So that's yeah, you know, you might have done it before, but you can, you know, rejoin it. It gives you accountability for 10 days, and it gives you themes. So, and I have changed the content. I have, you know, put some new things in. Don't think I've ever done my advice for a new business owner before, benefits to customers, that kind of thing. My local community happy place is quite a nice one. It could be a nice cafe that you're now able to go back to work once things are opening up a bit, which by the time we're running this, I think it will be in England at least, and I think Wales. You know, book recommendation is a good one as well. It could be just a book that you've loved, or, you know, it could be a business book or something related to what you do. You know, that's up to you. Benefits to customers, that's a real time for you to address pain points, you know, and what customers you know, are looking for. You know, and talking about and it's a really good time as well to talk about the transferable benefits of you know, your class. So it could be, you know, that tennis isn't just about, you know, your child playing in Wimbledon in the future, you know, which is probably highly unlikely unless you've got a real pro in your hands. But it's about you know, well, fitness obviously, but also teaching your child determination, teaching them to lose, teaching them that they have to rely on their own, you know, on themselves. Whereas team sports, you know, are about teamwork, working together, learning to you know, work with someone that perhaps is stronger or worse than them, you know, and pitching together, and all those sort of benefits, as well as the social benefits. You've got drama, you know, you'll know, but you know, you need to be sort of talking about these things a lot in your messaging. With drama, it's things like the sort of verbal skills, even things like at school, what a difference it can make. I know with my children, doing drama, you know, led to them putting their hands up a lot more in class and being more confident speaking up in class, you know, and getting roles in the school assemblies and stuff like that, that when they were quite sort of, well, particularly my son was quite a shrinking violet beforehand. So something you're grateful for is a good one, as we're entering a time of, you know, well, in this country at least, I know it's not great around other areas of the world, but you know, a bit more optimism. And so yeah, things like that. Something I learned recently, you can make that it could be just something fun that you learned, you know, I've taken up knitting or something, or, you know, related to your business again, that you know, you've learned something, that you've done training relevant to what you do, or just in general to improve your business. So you know, I just yeah, so I think, you know, motivates me is pretty self-explanatory. How to a quick win, you know, I would relate that to something that, you know, that parents might struggle with, or it could be, you know, going back to yeah, you know, say you run an arts and crafts class, it could be, you know, how to store homemade play-doh so it lasts a few days later or something longer, and that kind of thing. So yeah, it's you know, up to you on that one to sort of think around. Yeah, so something I'm looking forward to. Again, I'm trying to sort of get this sort of bit more optimism, reopening sort of thing going with that, but it could be something that you're looking forward to doing over the summer. It could be something you're looking forward to doing in your class, like next year you're planning to do a big show again, or, you know, something like that. So that kind of thing. Enthusiastic with a thumb there. So yeah, I'm going to take any questions at the end about the challenge, or in general, you know, as time allows, on sort of Instagram. So this is just a bit more about what I do. I'm doing some social media manager retainers now, but I'm pretty booked up on those. So what I'm focusing on now really is marketing mentoring, social media coaching. It can be one person one-to-one, or 3 people. It's just an additional charge per extra person. I do reviews of your current marketing messaging, your whole marketing materials as well. So your social media, your tone of voice, how your you know, your grid's looking, this type of content you're doing. We go through lots of different exercises. I've got lots of different sort of workbooks for you. There'll be, you know, a little bit of work to do beforehand. You can book that as a single session, or I do 3 or 6, and that becomes more of an accountability thing and a bit of a, you know, some people like to use it as a sort of having a monthly mentor. With the 3 package, people tend to do it a little bit, you know, closer together every 2 weeks or something, and really get lots done and really get, you know, loads of more confidence on their social media, having, you know, worked with me over 3 sessions, and, you know, with me reviewing stuff and critiquing and bouncing ideas with me, and they really sort of get confidence with their content, you know, across different platforms as well. But we can talk about other areas of marketing too, because I do come from like a fully fledged broad marketing background. So you know, and sort of, and I like to look at social media as how it's part of your overall marketing plan. I'm not sort of one of these people that's just come into social media later on, as I do have this marketing background. So although social media is really my focus now, I really like to discuss how it's one of your channels and look at your overall marketing plan and how it fits in. So you know, we'll work on those lines. And the 6-hour package is a little bit more sort of marketing mentoring, and having someone, well, that tends to be monthly or every sort of 2-3 weeks. You know, that's people that like to have someone to, you know, to look at with fresh eyes what they're doing in their marketing, bounce ideas off, ask questions, have someone, you know, if they're concerned about any sort of aspects of their marketing, to sort of get reviewing stuff. Do things like sort of health checks and stuff like that. You go onto my website, down there's the training and workshops. Should be active when I send the slides, or just go to my website, it's amazingfutures.co.uk. And yeah, and I do an ICAP member discount, so when you if you're an ICAP member, you will get a little bit of a saving on that, which is always nice, isn't it? So last of all, that's it. Question time. Over to you, Andy.
Amazing, Felicity, thank you so much. That was really, really good. Lots of really high value stuff in there, and kind of bits and pieces that people can take away and fill in knowledge gaps, that sort of stuff. Right, guys, question time. So this is a chance to ask any and all questions you've got about Instagram, or we've got Felicity here with us. There's a couple that have come in already, Felicity, which I might just show away. I think hopefully you can see the chat function now. You've stopped sharing, but so Lingo Trotting Kids says, what is more relevant, reels or stories to engage local parents or local schools, or even IGTV videos? I'm always lost on what is more important to do.
Yeah, it is a bit of a overwhelming choice in Instagram, isn't there? So I think that you just use them for slightly different purposes. So stories can be stuff like just sort of posting your lesson plan, a picture of you doing your lesson plans, putting up a picture with a nice, you know, with a sticker or something like that. And you can do a series, you know, sort of say 4 stories in a row with different stages of it. So those tend to do well. They're a bit more time consuming, but those sort of beginning, middle and end type stories do really well. Reels, I mean, they're just fun. I mean, I haven't done it, I must admit, I don't do a great deal of them because I don't really have the time to create them. But if you've got a little bit of time, you've got some little short videos that you know, so a story needs a video. You can do a video to a story, and that has to be under 15 seconds, and a reel can be up to 30 seconds. They've just extended that from 15 in the last few months. So you know, with reels you can add a bit more music to it. So something you could do for local schools, and that is just a bit of an energizing ad over 30 seconds, you know, and try and attract them that way. I mean, I don't mean a paid ad, I just mean, you know, a little promo with music and really fun, and then send that on to them, or just hope that they engage with it. Yeah, so I would use a mixture of both, to be honest. I don't think there's one in particular for schools or parents. Some people will consume stories more, and some people will consume reels more, particularly younger people. If you are, for example, if you run a class and you're aiming, you're targeting teenagers directly, then reels is probably where you want to be now. They will still consume stories a bit, but, you know, the under 25s are really all over reels now, because, you know, it's very much like the TikTok type generation as well. So, and it's very similar because basically Instagram just pinched TikTok's idea, which they have a habit of doing, because of course they stole stories from Snapchat. So I would just mix up your content, you know, and you will find, you'll get into a natural rhythm and find what works best for what. But you know, if you've got longer videos, make it real, add some, you know, music to it, have a bit of fun with it. You can also do voiceovers with reels, which is quite funny as well. And that kind of thing. So just test it and do different things with it. I don't think there's a particular right or wrong answer.
So Joseph asks, if you haven't posted for a while and then begin posting again, will the algorithm punish you and show your content to less people? Or if you start posting more, is it possible to turn this around with the algorithm?
I think that's a bit of a myth, that the algorithm punishes you if you don't post regularly. I don't think algorithm really gives a hoot about how often you post, in the sense that, you know, that they're going to penalize you for not posting enough, that they think you know, they don't like you anymore. I think what will happen is you will perhaps, I find that if I haven't posted for a while and I suddenly post, you get a drop off of followers. So in that interim, because people sort of think, oh, they're not posting very often, but most of those followers that you use won't really be your genuine followers anyway. They'll be the people that are doing the follow and follow type stuff that you get still unfortunately a bit off on Instagram. So I wouldn't worry too much, just get and post on there as often as you can. But what you won't get if you aren't posting regularly is growth. You know, because and it's just better to be consistent. I always think it's better to post 2 good pieces of content once a week than, you know, try and kill yourself posting 5 times a week and then like lose heart because it's not getting you anywhere and give up for a month. So I would prefer to see you posting even once a week, you know, and just keeping up. So if someone goes and checks your profile, they can see that you're active. You know, that than trying to just go nuts posting all the time if you haven't got the time to do it. Obviously, the more you post, the more you'll grow, and that's great. But you know, I'm conscious that, you know, you're very busy people, so you've got to keep it manageable.
Alrighty, Gemma says, what proportion of your posts do you think should be planned/scheduled in advance versus the in the moment ones?
That's a really good question. I don't think, again, that there's a hard set rule on it. There isn't really hard set rules on much really on Instagram. I would say you want to ideally be scheduling for 2 posts a week. And then that's your minimum. Your ideal minimum is 2 posts a week. So you know, if it's 1, then it's not the end of the world. But if you can schedule 2 and then just try and go in when you've got a bit of downtime to engage with people, and you might find stories to share, you might have been tagged in stories, share some stories that are relevant to your audience. Don't just share, you know, any old story, but as long as it's relevant to your audience, share. That's a bit of pay it forward, a bit of collab. You know, and be trying to do some in the moment stuff. Stories is great for in the moment. Reels is a little bit, you know, needs a little bit more planning often. And IGTV didn't fully answer the question above with the education thing. That IGTV nowadays is more kind of educational. So if you're approaching schools, you know, you could do educational ones, and you've got up to 60 minutes on IGTV. But that's not something you're going to do in the moment. That's something that you're going to plan and, you know, and work on in advance. So yeah, it's, if you aim for 50-50 and see where you get to with that, and then you'll just find what works for you. I think everyone's a bit different with that.
Okay, Caroline says, what are your thoughts on video content? What sort of video content gets the best engagement on Instagram?
I mean, if I was going to be truthful, I mean, I think things like, you know, babies and children being funny are going to get you good engagement on content. People like to laugh, so entertaining things do very well on Reels in particular. Cats and dogs, kittens and puppies. So, but it's not necessarily relevant to what you're doing. So, you know, anything funny with kids is always going to do really well. If you can do something funny yourself, you know, you can do the sort of talkovers. I find that there's an awful lot of pointing going on in Reels. Have you noticed? So like people point and then sun goes down and da 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 da. That makes me cringe. I don't personally do that, but if, you know, if that works for you, then that can be quite good for like an instructional video. So educational content can do quite well on Reels as well. If you've got little short snap bites, it could be like 3 tips to get your child dressed in the morning or something like that. If you can do something like that, those sort of things tend to do quite well. So I'd say educational and entertainment.
Alrighty, where are we at? Sorry, jumping around here. Katerina says, should we use real pictures, if authorized, of course, or paid ones? The latter look more professional, but maybe less authentic. Maybe a mix of both of the real ones.
So you mean like professional photographers? Yeah, there's three things here. People use stock photos, phone photos, and professional photos. I mean, you're going to have a big budget to be using professional photos all the time. So it's great if you can get some professional photos and use them from time to time. But actually, I don't think it's a huge advantage. I say this to a drama school owner that I work with that's very polished, and she likes to use only professional photos. But I'm like, if it restricts you from posting more, then you don't want to do it. And also it can look a little bit forced. So I think it's really nice to have just really relaxed photos, as long as they're good quality image. So yeah, you really don't need all the photos to be professional. If you've got a few, then fab, but I think that's a very small amount of it. Stock photos, I mean, again, one of the advantages of having the pro Canva account is you get photos that not everyone that uses Canva can use, because Canva now owns Pixabay and Pexels, so a lot of those free stock photos are being used an awful lot. Whereas if you've got the paid version of Canva, you get like hundreds of thousands of extra photos, and you can just tick when you're searching for an image. You can tick that you want it to be square for Instagram, which is a really useful tool, and you can tick that you want pro images only, so then you know that you're using photos that people aren't seen as much. Stock images don't tend to do so well. You want things to be as authentic as possible, but it's not always possible. You might want to use stock images for something like certain awareness days. So yeah, I think just concentrate on it being nice, bright, well placed photos, not like blurry with half a foot in it and stuff like that. Just good quality photos, and then you'll be okay.
Okay, and this one's been covered already, but Susan says, how often should we post?
Like I say, it's what you can manage, but try and do it consistently within reason. So I would try and post twice a week. Everyone will tell you different things on this. I saw someone, a so-called expert, recently telling people that they should post twice a day on their Facebook page, and I'm like, I don't really think that's going to really get you anywhere, apart from taking an awful lot of time. So I'd say on your Facebook page, try and post sort of 3 or 4 times a week. On Instagram, 2 or 3 times a week will get you a decent amount of growth. If you can do more, great. 5 times a week would be amazing. If you can share stories, but there's no need to be posting every day. Again, it's quality over quantity. Focus on getting good quality content, and don't worry too much about the amount of times that you're posting. What I would keep an eye on is the time of day, because obviously that all was thrown into array with the lockdown. People weren't commuting anymore, or people were working from home, so they didn't have their boss over there, so on social media more, and people weren't as busy out of the house, so they were on social media more. So I think now in the next few months we'll see the old patterns of social media users being more active sort of in the morning till sort of 9 a.m, sorry, and then lunchtime sort of 12 till 2, and then in the evenings from kind of rush hour 5 o'clock onwards being busier, whereas it hasn't mattered so much to now. So look in the insights are great. If you go on your profile, you'll see a button for insights under your stories and under your kind of highlights. If you've got those, click on insights and do keep checking those over the next few months, because you might see a little change in pattern there.
Okay, kind of linked to that really is a question from Katerina. What are the best days and times to post, and does it apply to post and stories?
I don't think it makes a difference for your grid or your stories that people are either on or they're not. I think at the moment, if you're going for the parent market, I always think try to avoid the kind of 8 till 9 when they're busy getting their kids breakfast and getting them out to school. But people might be waking up at 7 and scrolling on their phone a little bit, so you could do an early morning post or an after 9 o'clock post after sort of school drop off, or even when people start working, they kind of have a quick check of their social media as they ease themselves into their day with a cup of coffee. I know that's what I do. So or not coffee, tea, I don't drink coffee, but you know what I mean. And lunchtime I think it is pretty highly pretty high level of users. I mean, with Instagram, you've got about an hour where you're your post will be shown, really, and then it extends the more people like comment on it and stuff, and you know, this can change around a bit, but you know, so if you're doing it at kind of 12:30, then you're probably covering most people's lunch break, and then commuting hours again as commuting starts for Londoners and people in cities that are using public transport. But you know, if you're in a place where most people would drive to work, then you probably want to wait till 7 in the evening after people have got home and had their dinner. So again, there's no replacement for testing. There's no hard and fast rule. I'm just giving a general guideline, but you need to sort of post and test, and the Instagram insights are great. They'll give you a little bar chart where you can see the time that your users more active.
Alrighty, a couple more for you, Felicity. They're coming fast. Regarding stories, how long should they be? Sorry if you said it and I missed it. Stories, how long?
Oh, well, it depends. If you're doing an image, it just runs for the story length, which is you know, 20 seconds or whatever. So 15 seconds, I think. So yeah, your video, you're not going to be able to do more than 15 seconds. It will chop off the video if you make it longer than that, and you could be in the middle like that. So you know, you want to make sure it's in that 15 seconds, or you can split the video using something like iMovie or InShot, I believe. You know, you can split a video into 15-second chunks if you've got like a minute-long video, and run it on a story that way. You might want to put it on a reel if you've got a 30-second video instead of a story. So, but 15 seconds is your maximum video length for a story, and otherwise chopped. So.
Alrighty, Gemma says, what is a good level of growth?
It's much smaller than you'd think, actually. So like your engagement rate, an engagement rate of 2%, if you go for that, that's a really good engagement rate. So it's much lower than you think. So growth rate, you know, if you're getting 5 to 10% of new followers each month, you're 5 to 10% increase in followers each month, you're doing really, really well. It's not easy to grow your audience organically on social media. So it's, you know, it's very much a long-term thing. So yeah, if you're talking about growth in terms of follower numbers, you know, I would aim for 5 to 10%, and then you're doing great. It also sort of depends what level of the journey you are. I found with Instagram, when you start off an account, when you get into the first 500 is relatively easy, and then that's getting to that 500 follower account seems to shut off something in the algorithm who's a bit like, ooh, they're potential advertisers now. We're going to make it harder for them. Just something I've noticed. There's no scientific rule on that, but I've run about 20 Instagram accounts, and it always seems to, from the start, and it always seems to happen around the 500 mark that it gets tougher. So you might find that sort of, you know, it happens to everyone. Even people with tens of thousands of accounts will notice every now and again, you know, that the growth like starts stopping off. So don't get too hung up on that. Just focus on content and you know, getting that good.
Okay, final question for you. What apps do you recommend to use later? Question mark. Any other good ones that are free, or use Buffer, Hootsuite, or any others?
Right, yeah, that could be an entire session actually on scheduling. But so there's a mind-boggling amount, and on my social media managers professional forums, this is always a question. So Later's great for Instagram. I really like Planoly, Planoly. I like the ones where you can see your grid. You know, if you're doing any sort of form of stylized, see what it's going to look like. Buffer's fine. I've actually got the paid version of Buffer that I use for a lot of my stuff. Most of all, you want one that posts directly to Instagram, because some of them will make you push it through. So if you're out and about, or you've left your phone at home, you might not do it. And if it was a time critical one, then it hasn't gone live, and that's a bit of a pain. So ones that don't do that are Content Cal, which is a shame, because Content Cal is a really great one, but it doesn't post directly to Instagram. Buffer does, so you're fine with Buffer, and you get 3 free profiles on Buffer, so you could, you know, do your Facebook, your Instagram, and another one that you use, for example, Twitter or something. Yeah, and then you've also got Facebook Creator Studio, so you can actually schedule directly to Instagram and Facebook from those. I mean, I use a scheduler because I'm running across lots of different platforms, but if you're just doing one Facebook, sorry, one business, then you're probably fine just doing it directly in Facebook's all in one, so that can do. But I do find it's a bit glitchy for Instagram, which is ridiculous because it is Facebook's own one. Last but not least, if you've got the pro version of Canva now, you can schedule directly from Canva, which is great if you're doing images in there, and then it has a calendar and you can schedule images from Canva straight into straight to post directly. I haven't tried it for things like my own photos though, so you still need to use something else for that. But you could put it onto, there's no reason you couldn't upload a photo, like create an Instagram design, upload your photo, whack it on that, and just do everything through that.
Alrighty, fabulous. That's the end of our questions, Felicity.
Yeah, good amount of questions though. That's great.
There's always questions about social media, right?
Yeah.
Listen, thank you so much for being a part today. Did you want to pop in the chat function quickly the link to your website or the content?
Sure.
So guys, if you want to get involved with Felicity's 10-day challenge, I think it's going to be starting a week on Monday, you said, from memory. So not this Monday, the following Monday.
Yeah, 11th, I think we'll start, just to give time for people to do the graphics and stuff if they want to.
Okay, great. So what I'll do, guys, is I'll send out a recording for this whole event on Tuesday, more than likely, and a link will also go out there. But if you just see on the chat function now, Felicity's website, on the bottom there's the contact form to kind of put yourself on there and get involved. And obviously do follow the links to her Instagram too. And yeah, look, thank you so much for being a part of that, Felicity. Obviously you've done a few before, so I'm used to your style of doing things, but always lots of value in them. So I really appreciate the time. And look, guys, if you're staying around for our next talk, I think I've just seen Vaishali enter the room, so I'll say hi to Vaishali in a second for our marketing planning session. That's going to be starting at 11:15. So you've got a short period of time now, 10 minutes or so before we kick that off. So please go grab a quick comfort break, teas, coffees. You can probably go for a biscuit now. It's 11 a.m. We'll add a biscuit at 11 a.m. That's the rule. So grab on those two, and we'll see you shortly. All right. Quickly, Vaishali, are you here? Let me just quickly check she is here. You just unmute yourself, Vaishali, and just say hi.
Hi.
Hey, how are you?
Yeah, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. So we've just had our first session with Charlie on Instagram with Felicity. So you're up next. I'm just going to pop a slide on real quick, about a 10-minute break, and then you're up. All right.
Great, fantastic, thanks.
Alrighty, let's get going again, guys. Right, settle yourself back in, everyone. Those of you who just joined us, welcome. Those of you that joined us for the session before on Instagram with Felicity, thank you for staying with us. Vaishali, can you unmute yourself? I muted everyone before, so make sure you...
I can. Hello.
Hey, Vaishali, how are you? How are things?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yes, good, fabulous, thank you. Things have gone really well, no tech issues, which is always my concern when I'm hosting these events, is will there be a tech issue? And so far, so good. So
That's brilliant.
Alrighty, guys. So, look, welcome back to everyone. We're joined by Vaishali Patel, who's one of our marketing professionals speaking today, TEDx speaker, which is very, very cool. We haven't got time to talk about that too much today, but maybe another day. We're going to talk about marketing planning, right, Vaishali? So this is something that I think a lot of people just kind of swerve, and they say, you know what, even if I like marketing, I'm going to swerve the planning stage of things, or I'm going to make a plan and it's going to sit on my shelf and do nothing, or sit in a folder on a desktop somewhere and do nothing. So yeah, I'm going to hand straight over to you to do your thing and share with us your wisdom about marketing planning, and to tell us all why we should be doing one and how to do it right.
Great. Thank you so much, Andy, for the intro. And to everyone here, hi, thank you so much for being here today. I'm really looking forward to sharing with you something I'm very passionate about, marketing plans, because I've worked in marketing for 15 years and I could never have got through my career the way I did without one at any company. So before I go into that, I just want to let you know, I live by the train station. So if you hear trains go by, please forgive me. It's just what's going on outside my building. So I'll tell you a bit about me. I've worked in marketing 15 years. I've worked in professional services companies like architecture and law. And I started off as a marketing coordinator, worked up to being a marketing executive. And I've worked on the communication side of things, as well as the business development, sort of pitching, sales side of things, and putting together pitches to win business. And then I moved into advertising and media and technology. And there I started to step more into creating marketing plans and marketing strategies to enter different markets. And then I started to work more with entrepreneurs, and I was starting up like some of my own little social impact businesses as well. So I was pulling together things. And so that's sort of a bit about my background. Last year in December started a new venture with my TEDx speaker coach, where we started coaching, helping entrepreneurs and coaches TEDx speakers. So that's my new little entrepreneurial venture, which I'm using all my marketing and commercial skills to help me put together. But for today, I have a presentation that I want to take you through about marketing plans. And there's a lot of information in there, but I will be stopping in the middle at points just to ask you to reflect back on what you're doing as a business. And I'm happy to take key questions, but if you don't need to have them answered, oh no, I'm so sorry that keeps dipping in and out. I don't have very good headphones, and my speaker is not working. So is this better? Just let me know.
Better for me, yeah, when you're a bit closer.
Yeah, okay, I'm going to stay close. Sorry. So yeah, I will be stopping in between just to ask you questions so you can reflect on what you're up to. Also, secondly, if you have a dying question which stops you from understanding what's next, feel free to pop it into the chat. And Andy, if you can help me out there, if anybody does have those questions, just let me know and I'll stop to answer those, but happy to take this at the end. So let's get stuck in. It's something I'm really passionate about, which you might hear while I'm delivering the presentation. So let's start. Everything you need to write a marketing plan. Do we have a question?
No, you're good.
You're good. I'm good. Okay, great. So what is a marketing plan? So put it in really simple terms, it's really just a course of actions to bring you from where you are today to where you want to be tomorrow in your business. And it's using the tools of marketing to help you get there. So why do you need a marketing plan? There are 4 key reasons why a marketing plan is really useful. One of them is, sorry, I've got the Zoom thing open, so I'll move it. Okay, so there's 4 key reasons, I think. The first one is that it aligns your goals and activities. So when you have a business goal, like say, for example, you want to earn £50,000 this year, and then you create a marketing plan to look at how you're going to use marketing tactics to help you get there. It ensures that you create marketing, you have your marketing goals written down, you have all your activities written down in one place, and then it provides clarity and direction for you in terms of what actions you need to take, and whether the actions that you are taking or the ideas that you have are aligned to your plan and will help you accomplish the objectives that you have in the plan. Because sometimes there's all these new social media tools and things, and you think, oh, I'll give that a go because someone else is doing it. But sometimes it might not be what's in your plan. And therefore, following what's in your plan and having that clarity and direction also creates efficiency and saves you time. So you're only focusing your time and effort on those activities that you know are going to help you accomplish your business goals. And finally, it helps you to monitor and improve your marketing performance. So in your plan, you would have monthly and quarterly objectives, and you can see, have I met my sales objective, or have I met the number of website visitors or leads that I've got in, or business that I've won? And if you have, great, you can see what worked well that month or that quarter. And if you didn't, you can look at, okay, what was the difference and why didn't it work well? And that could help you to then plan the next quarter in a more efficient way. So that's why we need a marketing plan. So this is just a quick bird's eye view. Where does it fit into a company? So as a business, you'll have your business plan, which every business needs to have, whether it's to get money or to understand what you're doing and where you're going as a business. And then a business will have different tools it can use, things like HR to help find the right people, put the right policies in place. A finance plan, you need to know how you're going to pay people who you work with and how they're going to pay you. But all part of that is the marketing plan. And this is how you're going to reach your customer in the most cost-efficient way and the most effective way, and how you're going to get that message out there. How are your customers going to find out about you? How are they going to be able to buy from you? Where can they find you? What are you going to tell them about your product or service? All of that fits into the marketing plan. So don't get overwhelmed by this. This is just the big picture of marketing. I'm going to take you through each stage. So the first stage is your goals, which we've talked a little bit about. You need your goals there to help you look at what you want to accomplish. From the goals, you create your strategy. So within marketing, that will be like, okay, who's my target audience and what value am I going to provide to them? That's also different from my competitors. Then once you've created that strategy, you look at, okay, what's my tactics? What's a plan tactical plan that I'm going to use to meet that strategy and those goals? And then you create like a project plan or an implementation plan over the course of the year or the quarter, which shows the activities you're going to do, who might do them, and who you might need, and etc., things like that. So it's a real tactical rollout of the activities you're going to do. And then finally is the control or the evaluation element. Are the actions that I'm taking meeting my goals? And if not, what do I need to change? So this is the big picture. Let's start with your marketing goals and marketing objectives. So there's 3 levels. One are marketing goals, which are broad aims used to kind of shape your marketing strategy. So I'm going to go through this on the next slide. I'm going to give you some examples. So then the marketing objectives are more specific from the marketing goals. They cover something called the SMART criteria, which is specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. And then you also have your marketing KPIs, which are your performance indicators. So they're specific metrics to see, are you on track with your performance to meet your objectives? So here are some examples of some top level marketing goals. So it might be create the most remarkable customer service in your industry, or to be the most visible brand. It might be to increase your site traffic, and reduce, your advertising or your media spend. It might be to be the #1 toy provider, etc. So you can see they're quite broad. And then from those broad goals, you'll create your specific and well-defined marketing objectives. And they might look something like this. We need 20,000 visitors, 500 leads, and 12 customers within the next 12 months. And this is in order to achieve our revenue goal of £600,000. It might be we need to generate 2 customers from our current client list using email marketing. Or we need to generate 300 visitors to our website per month to ensure that our keyword term, will rank #1 in Google. So they're very specific marketing objectives from the marketing goals. So I'm going to stop here and allow you just to quickly think about, what are your business goals over the next year? So, it might be revenue goals, it might be to increase your team size. What are those? And if you haven't created your marketing goals, maybe you just have a stab at perhaps where you want to be. And also, maybe you might already have this. What are your marketing objectives? Are they SMART based? Are they specific? Are they measurable? So do they have a number to them? Are they attainable and realistic? Like, sometimes we can set very large goals and they can actually disempower us, but you can create large goals that are a bit of a stretch. If you know that you could possibly get 10 customers this month, you might set yourself a stretch goal like 12. But if you set a goal like 50, that might be overwhelming, and it can stop performance. And time bound. So is that something you want by the end of the month, end of the year? And then you might have things like, what are your key performance indicators? So I'm just going to give you a few minutes there to just have a little think about and write something down. And if you want, feel free to share some of those in the chat box as well. So
yeah, I'm on into the chat box, Vaishali. I don't know if you can see it when you're sharing your screen or not, but if there is any questions, I'll shout. Yeah.
Okay, great. I'm just going to give everyone a minute just to kind of reflect on that. Oh, I've gone on to the next bit. Oops. I'll just give you a quick minute to have a reflection around that. And I'll just quickly go back to some of the slides so you can see. Okay, so it's been about a minute, so I'm going to move on to the next bit. And if we've got time at the end, I might take some sharing around what you've created, and you can ask some questions, and I'll be happy to support you there. So then from your goals, you create your marketing strategy. And this involves really 2 areas of strategy. So once you've got your goals, the next bit is, so who is my target market for my product or my service? And what is my product or services value proposition? Now, before you do this in a marketing strategy, you would have also done something called scoping out the market opportunity. So here you would look at what are the macro influences affecting my industry. So this could be things like, what are the political implications in the industry? So you might have certain political guidelines or policies in place if you're having to work with young people. So you might have to look at, okay, what are some of those implications I need to take into consideration? And then, so we use a model called PEST. So the P stands for political, E is economical, or it could be economical. And there you might look at, okay, what are the economic trends that are happening in the industry, that are happening in the world that affect my industry? And there may not be, and there may be. So that's something that you would research and look at. And then social, the S stands for social. So there's a lot of change going on been a lot of change over the last year actually within how children are going to school, how they're learning, and this would, I assume, would have a massive impact on what you're selling, how you're selling, and things like that. So you would look at all of those implications in this sort of macro analysis. And then you'd also look at any technological implications. So one of the biggest one I'd say right now is that you've got a lot more children learning over Zoom, and there are so much more opportunities that are opening up online. So those are sort of the macro trends that are impacting the industry. And then you may also look at something called the SWOT analysis. So you'll look at, okay, what are, as my company, what are my strengths and weaknesses currently? And then from looking at your strengths and your weaknesses and looking at the PEST analysis of the market, you can then look at, okay, what are the opportunities in the market and what are the threats to my business? So opportunities might be, for example, if you were providing a service to a school and you were going in with the lockdown and things moving onto technology, one of the opportunities for you as a business might be, right, how do I move what I'm providing into an online environment? Or it might be, well, now the kids are coming back. How do I how do I expand what I'm offering now to children now that they're coming back into school, etc.? So what are the opportunities from that analysis, and do you have the strengths to develop that? And if you do notice any weaknesses, then you can also look at, okay, what do I need to put into place as a business to turn that weakness into more of a strength? So you would have done all of that analysis as well as your competitor analysis. So I'm going to come to that in a minute, but you would have done some research on who they are, etc. And then from there, you would look at your customer. So here, this is something called segmentation, targeting, and positioning. Forgive me for my my little diagram. It's not the most like perfect diagram, but this is what I'm trying to show here is when you have a product or service, you've got this whole market, which we'd call mass market if you went for everyone, but you choose a specific target. So here I've just made an example saying, okay, you might choose a corporate target audience, and within that corporate target audience, you might want to further target the audience, and that might be to FTSE 100 companies within the corporate audience. And there is an argument that when you niche your product, your offering like that, and your target offering like that, it's just better for your business. You know who your clients are, and it's easier to sell your product or service to them rather than going mass market, which can be quite not as cost efficient. So how do you define who your target audience is going to be? So there's like 4 different factors. One of them is the demographical factor, so who your customer is. So these can be, you can base this on lots of demographic things like either age, gender, income, education, household size, profession. So for this particular industry, it could be parents of children between 3 and 10 years old, or schools who head teachers within schools who serve children between 5 and 11, or secondary schools, etc. So you can create who your client is that way. And then there's something called psychographic factors. So why does your customer buy? So what personality and emotions they use to buy? So this could be like if you're looking at parents, it might be really busy parents that work long hours, so they want to send their kids to certain after school classes, or they want their kids to have their kids to be involved more in the creative arts outside of school. So it's like what personality and emotions are based on your customer's behavior. So just to be clear, the customer isn't the child initially, it's the person that pays for the service, but the child is a influencer in the decision-making process. Then you have behavioral factors. So how does your customer buy? So it could be they're very brand loyal. So they may just always buy from you, or they may always, once they get a brand that they love, they just buy from that brand. Or they are very sold on marketing factors, like they love discounts. So, or they it may be based on immediacy. They want things, they'll buy it if they can get it conveniently now. So you could also look at, okay, what kind of customer what kind of buyer behavior do I want my customer to have? And then it could be geographical factors, the way your customers buy. So now more so this might be online, but it could also, some companies might be by country or region, etc. So this is what which are generally used to carve out who our target audience is going to be. So here's a bit of an example. It could be parents of children between 3 and 10. Are they professionals? Are they women? Doesn't always have to be, but it can be as details of that. What are the unique characteristics of your customer segment? So what you might like to do is create what we call a customer persona. And what that is you say, this is my ideal client. They're parents, they are busy, they work, they both have a corporate job, or they're both in creatives, etc. What their needs are is that they need their kids to, they need support to provide their kids with creative stimulation because they don't have time. So the challenges are they just don't have the time to do that. What do they want? They want something that's easy, something that their kids will love, so they don't have to force them to do it, etc. So those are sort of questions you want to look at for your specific target audience, and really get to know them, so you can really target your marketing campaigns and your marketing messaging to them. So I'm going to give you a minute actually just to kind of have a think about that, and for your target audience. Again, if you have any questions, just pop them in the chat box. Okay, so it's been about a minute, so I'm going to move on to the next bit. So this is the competitor market positioning. So this is all about how do you want to be perceived in the market. So there may be lots of companies and businesses that provide what you provide. So how do you have your target audience buy from you rather than else that's providing the same service as you? So there are different factors that can be used to differentiate. So one of the strategies is to differentiate your brand or your product or service from your competitors. And one of the tools that we use is positioning maps, and they can show where your existing products and services, so maybe your competitors, are in the marketplace, and decide where you would like to position yourself. I'm going to show you a visual in a minute, so this will all make sense. And you can have two options. One, you can find a gap in the market and position yourself in that gap. So no one else is doing that, so you're going to do that, and that's what's going to differentiate you. Or you might want to compete against competitors and try and find somewhere something different about you to be able to compete with them. So I'm going to use this example from the car industry. So what they've done is used the luxury versus economy factor and family versus two-seater factor. And you can see that Porsche is a luxury car, it's two-seater, and that's how it positions itself. Whereas the Mini Cooper is a two-seater as well, but it's more of an economy buy. And then I've got a more detailed map here. So this shows things like, for example, there's a huge gap in the market here for family and economy. And you could look where it says sporty and economy, there's quite a lot. So you can do this to find where you are against your competitors and where you want to position yourself against your competitors. This is a really good tool for that. And usually we do this, you could do this before you've decided where you want to go, where you want to place yourself. So you can see where everyone's placed and then you can find a gap. Or you can decide that this is what you want to do, look at who else is there, and then find other things to differentiate yourself. So this brings me on to the value proposition. And this is an easy to understand reason why a customer should purchase from you. And it's a clear statement that explains the pain points that your product solves. It communicates the benefits and why it's better than similar products on the market. So the basic elements of a value proposition would be, what's the offering? Who's the audience? Why they should get that from you? So what's the biggest benefit? And how? Like what's the differentiator? Why should the customer trust you over someone else? So here is an example of a positioning statement. So this is generally how they're written. So the offering, the product is the best something in its product category for specific target customers because specific reason. So I'm going to give you a really quick example. So Diet Coke is the best, say, low-calorie soft drink for men who work in the construction industry, and I'm just basing that completely on the ads, right? So for men who work in the construction industry, because it has 20% less sugar and enables them to I don't know, sustain their energy along the day. So it's something as quick, something like that. That's what your value proposition would be. It would be what your name, what the product name is, the category it's in, the target customer, and why. What's the biggest value for them? And this might be against, say, Coke, Pepsi, Pepsi Max. So it would be that because would be sort of a value from the positioning map that we did, that would include all of those. It's the key differentiator there. So that's your value proposition statement. So I'm going to stop here to reflect, because what we've done so far is the strategy. the marketing strategy. And so what we've covered is your goals and your objectives and how you're going to measure those. We've covered the strategy you're going to use, so who you're going to target and how you're going to who you're going to target and why they should buy from you. What sets you apart from competitors? So now with that, that's what we call the strategy. And that refers to, okay, how you're going to achieve the goal. Now the tactic is how you're going to execute that plan. So now we look at, okay, how am I going to reach that target audience with the value proposition I've created? How am I going to communicate that across to them? How are they going to buy my product or service? So we start with, I'm just going to give you a little bit of a theory here about marketing tactical plans. So most entrepreneurs, from what I've seen, start with a tactical plan. So when I talk to entrepreneurs, they'll be like, well, I just need to get my product or service out there. I need to do SEO, or I need to do advertising, or I need to, without thinking about the strategy. So it's like, who are you going to target when you go there? Or who are you targeting online? What are you going to say to them? What sets you apart? And that work hasn't been done, and they'll go out and do the tactical side of things, and they may get some business from that. But when you have the strategy in place, it's so much more powerful. You can pivot a lot quicker as well. It just makes things a bit more efficient. And yourself as a business owner, much more clearer about where you're going, what tactics and what strategy is working and what isn't. So what is tactical marketing? Sometimes it's referred to as the marketing mix. And as I said before, it's how you execute the plan. And it involves 4 key elements: the product or the service, what price you're going to how you're going to price that product or service to that target audience, how you're going to distribute it. So recently, a lot of it's been online now, right? And there might be things like, okay, how am I going to do it online? Am I going to do it over Zoom? Am I going to do it over WhatsApp video? Or am I going to do an e-commerce place where I can do it? Or I'm just going to wait until everything opens up, and then I'm going to go back into physical locations. You might decide right now I might do something in the park with up to 6 clients. So there's a lot there around place. And then promotion. So this, sometimes people get confused with the whole of marketing being just promotion, which it isn't. Promotion is, okay, how do I communicate about my product to people so that they know about it, and they know how to get it, and they know what it is and what the benefits are. So let's look at product. What kind of questions you would put in a tactical plan around product? What is the core product or service? So if you provide children's colouring books so that might be your core product or service. What is it called? How is it branded? What kind of colours are you going to use? What kind of font, typography, all of that are you going to use? That's going to appeal to those children of that age group. What problem does it solve? You know, my kids need something to entertain themselves. They need to stimulate their senses, they need to colour, all of that. What features does your book, does your magazine have? So it might be you've got dot-to-dot ones where they can draw, but also they can cut something out and stick it somewhere, and things like that. So you look at what kind of features does your magazine have? What does it look like? How will your customers experience it? So how will kids experience it? Will it be like, wow, look at these big dinosaurs on the front cover, I've got to have that? And then when they and it's a small size, so they can carry it easily, and each page is really colourful, so it just stimulates their senses. And then what's unique about your product? So when you've done your positioning map, you'll be able to tell what's unique about your product. You might have an after-sales service. So, hey, if you buy this first one, we'll give you 3 more at a discounted rate of 5% or something. So look at what kind of after-sales service you might offer. And I've already covered what are the additional features or services you might provide. So it might be if you buy a subscription of 10 magazines, I'm going to give, I'm going to have a free call with your child just to, I don't know, have a little quiz on things, etc. So there might be 3 things you throw in as a reason to make your product attractive to your target audience. Then we move on to price. So what's the value of the product or service to the buyer? Here you would look at, okay, is my target audience price sensitive? Am I going for those that are earning a certain amount, or am I going to go high end? And if I increase my price, will it give me extra profit margin, or will a small decrease help me gain market share? So there's different pricing models you can use for different things. So if your marketing goal is you've just started out and you want to increase your market share and you want to get 200 people on your mailing list, you might decide, okay, I'm going to start off by offering a low price up to a certain point. And then once I hit my 200 subscribers, then I'm going to put it back to a higher price. So you can play with price to accomplish your different marketing goals. And then are you pricing according to your target customer? So I worked with some entrepreneurs who are charging the same price for individuals as corporates. And big mistake, you can gain a higher margin, extra profit gain from charging a bit more to corporates than you would with an individual. So make sure you're looking at that if you have that in your marketing plan. And what discounts could I offer to trade customers or to other specific segments of your market? So maybe you do work with high-end parents, but you might decide I want to also work with parents are on low socio-economic incomes, and I might offer a discount to them. And you may also look at your pricing in comparison to your competitors. And the thing about when you have lots of competitors providing the same service, pricing doesn't become a big factor. What you might then look at are things like, in terms of the product features, what additional free services can I offer to make them buy from me? I might be more relationship based. You might spend more time talking to them or offering them guidance or advice for free. So price might not be the competitive factor, it might be something else. And then we look at place distribution. So where do buyers look for your product or service? So we talked about this before, online, offline. Are you in the schools? Are you on the website? What's going to be the most effective way for your target audience to buy your product or service? How can you, do you need salespeople to sell it, to go out there and sell? Do you need to attend trade fairs so that people can find out about you? What are your competitors doing again, and how can you learn from them and differentiate what you're offering? So you cover product, what my product is, what additional features I offer, and things like that, how I'm going to price it for that target audience specifically. And if you have 2 or 3 target audiences, look at creating different pricing strategies for those. And then look at, okay, where will my target audience find out more about it? You might have your website on here as well. It might be a place where they buy. And then we come to promotion. So promotion is all about how do people find out about my product or service? And there are 6 stages. The first one is set a goal. Again, I'll set a goal about communication. So this could be like, I want to have increased my social media followers by I don't know, say 200 each month, So I know that they're becoming more aware of my product or service, and I might create specific messaging for the external audience. So this might be very much focused on the value proposition. What makes my business different from competitors? And I want to communicate that. Then what media am I going to use? And that includes what budget do I have for communications? Usually with entrepreneurs, the online is a lot more affordable, but there might be things like radio. You might get slots on radio. You might want to go into traditional magazine and newspaper advertising. You might want to host events and things like that. So look at what budget you have, and then look at, okay, am I going to do what advertising am I going to do? Am I going to do PR? Am I going to do online marketing, social media marketing? And one of the best ways to do this is to look at, where are my audience? So if my audience are parents who drive their kids to school between 8 and 9, then maybe getting a slot on a local radio between that time might be a very good thing to do, and to put in your plan, and then find out how much it costs and see if it's within budget. It could be specific magazines that they read, or there might be online. Now there's lots of online groups on Facebook and LinkedIn, or even just forums online, and that you could try and do a talk in, or try and promote your service or product in. So you can find out about all these things, find out how much it would cost, and then look at, okay, what's going to be the most effective mix of these different types of media. So radio, a local newspaper, and then maybe just a leaflet in your local shopping centre or something like that, something outside the school. And then you may want to develop the creatives and then put together your communications campaign. So I'm going to run this campaign for 6 weeks. So I'm going to have these leaflets distributed outside, I don't know, Tesco, and then I'm going to be outside the school and share leaflets. I'm going to go into some Facebook groups and share about my product or service. And then at the end of the 6 weeks, you can evaluate your campaign results. So say your goal was, at the start of the 6 weeks, I want to increase my social media following by 200. I want to have gained 5 or 6 leads each month to come to use my product or service. At the end of the 6 weeks, did I accomplish that? And if I did, great. If I did, what worked? What really worked in the tactics that I used? So I can do that again. And what didn't work, so that I can then make sure when I do it again, I'll do it differently. So that's really all the elements of a marketing plan. And I just want to show you, when you put it all together, what it looks like in terms of implementation. I think this is the right one. Yeah, so this is what one could look like. So you would have your goals for quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4. You might have your key focus for each quarter. So this could be things like what particular, maybe it's a target audience you want to focus on, or a key message you want to focus on, or maybe you want to increase your social media following, or increase your email distribution list. That can be your key focus. And then here you'd put down what the activity is. And what I normally do is just color in the box to say, right, I'm going to focus on growing my Instagram followers. And we're going to start an Instagram campaign for 2 weeks in May, and I highlight that. And then another activity might be to join 3 or 4 Facebook groups, and I'm going to do that in June. And then another activity might be to stand outside, to put leaflets up in shopping centres, and so to do something external like that, I might do that in July. And then and that would all be focused on, say, if your goal was I want to increase my social media following, and I want to get 5 leads from social media. So then you could see that those activities are going to help, are aligned with those goals. So you know that what you're doing is relevant, really. And then you could do the same for port 2, port 3, port 4. How I've learned to do it is to work backwards, to start with where I want to be at the end of the year and break it down to, okay, what does that mean? Where do I want to be in quarter 4? Where do I then want to be in quarter 3? Then in quarter 2, and then quarter 1. So that's kind of how I do that. And that's really it. Oh, where are we? Oh God. That's really it in terms of everything I think you need to know to create a marketing plan. Are there any questions?
Fabulous, Charlie. Thank you so much. So much to take in, isn't there? I think with
I know.
I think that's part of the problem sometimes with marketing plans, is that people see it and they go, "Oh my God, how am I going to find the time to do that?" I think a lot of time our biggest problem as business owners is having the time to sit down and do these things. But like you said during the whole thing, the whole talk and at the beginning, was it is important you make that time, right? And that's
First thing, making that time, but secondly, don't try to perfect it. You're not. It's a work in progress. The marketing plan is always a work in progress. You're always trialing and erroring things as well. So that's something I would say too. There is a lot of information in that, but sometimes you don't need all of that. Sometimes it's just very clear who your target audience is, and how you're going to reach them. It might be just very simple, but the hardest part I find for entrepreneurs is just to write it down and to connect it to a goal and an objective, and then how you're going to measure it, and then putting in time monthly just to track performance. And with that, you can go, okay, I'm on track. That's great. I'm not on track. What do I need to slightly change in my marketing plan? So.
Okay, amazing. Let's see, guys. If you've got any questions, feel free to shout out. I think Ala's got a question just come through just now. I'm going to ask one real quick, Vaishali, for myself,
Sure.
And I have my own take on this. But so the kids' activity sector is very fragmented. Lots and lots of players across the UK, thousands of players. Independents, non-for-profits, franchisees, and big franchise networks too, right? With the competitor analysis side of your planning, there are so many competitors, depending on where you are. Certainly if you're based quite in a densely populated city, for example, there's lots of people that operate there. How do you make sure you don't get bogged down in that side of the plan? I think sometimes you can look at it and go, well, I might offer a kind of sensory class for children, or an arts and crafts class for primary schools, or a filmmaking course for teenagers, but there's lots of people doing different things. How do you make sure you're bogged down in that side of it and not kind of, sometimes it can skew what you're offering, and as I was trying to say to people, is try and focus on you, run your own race kind of thing. How do you advise people to kind of not focus on their competitors too much?
So when I started, if I use my own example, when I started the TEDx masterclasses, I just stayed in my lane. I did not look at what anyone else was doing. I just came up with the idea, spoke to somebody to collaborate with me, and we just did it. The only time I looked online was to see, okay, how are people writing about their masterclasses? How are they communicating about it? And then I looked at that, and then I sort of had an area where I really wanted to focus on my masterclass, which is, if you're going to do a masterclass, if you're going to do a TEDx talk, your why is the most important thing. And I just focused on that. And after a while, I did see lots and lots of different speakers who were offering that come up. But and I just looked at them and I thought, okay, they're all offering the same sort of thing, but their messaging is slightly different as to what they're focusing on. So I was focusing on my why. Some of the others were focusing on storytelling or this or that. So I would say initially, if you've got an idea, stay in your lane and get your idea out there. And there are going to be others that do it, but there are going to be a target audience or people that will buy from you because of something that you provide that's unique.
Okay, fab. Right, so we've got a question from Ella. She says, how many times would you say trying something and it's not worked means that it's not the right channel, or not a matter of good copy?
I'm just going to have a read of that. How many times you would say try to find something and it has not worked, means that not the direction. So I would say, like, if you put something out firstly and you see, oh, okay, there's no, I haven't got the response that I want, then you could ask a few people. We do that as a business. When we worked in businesses, we would test copy and test the creatives with people. And so as a business, I would check in with the TEDx stuff. I've checked in with people and gone, hey, what do you think of this? And I just get some feedback on the copy. And I put it out there, and if it works, great. If it doesn't, then I'll take it back and think, I'm going to try a different, writing the copy from a different angle. And I've run 5 masterclasses now, and every masterclass I do a different type of copy to see what works. One time was, are you an introvert? You don't need to be an extrovert to do a TEDx talk, or so I will do it as many times as you need to until you get it right, basically, until you see it's effective. And then you might find that with some of the online channels, you can get statistics. So you can see, is your target audience, are you reaching your target audience using that channel? So Instagram, Facebook, they'll all be able to tell you who you're targeting or who you want to target. And if you're not, then you could tweak your campaign, or you can maybe your audience is on LinkedIn. So you can try things out. That's what I would say.
Okay, great stuff. Vicky says, really useful, thank you. The proposition statement is the idea that you communicate to your customers in promotions, posters, social media, etc. ?
Everything, yeah. That value proposition, that statement is for your staff as well, because it's for everyone within the company to know, so that they're able to communicate that to whoever they speak to. And I believe everyone in a company is marketing. So your accountant is your marketer, your HR person, everyone is your account marketer. So if they all know your proposition statement and they speak that, then that's brilliant. And then you use that to differentiate yourself, yes, in all your promotions, your social media, your website, everything.
Okay, cool. I've got one more question for you. In terms of campaigns, that could be a completely separate talk. You spoke about kind of splitting, in terms of the planning of this, splitting it into quarters. Do you recommend overlapping the quarters sometimes for like longer term campaigns? How would you,
Yes.
how is it, or would you have kind of, I guess it depends on your business, but would you kind of have overlapping campaigns with each other, or would it be you kind of stick to, in your mind at least, stick to kind of quarterly goals and campaigns and then kind of have them segmented like that? How do you do that?
So it depends on what your goals and objectives are, to be honest. So sometimes you can have campaigns that overlap, because you might have something that's coming up in the future, but you want to start promoting that like an event. You may start promoting 2 months to 6 weeks before it happens. So there might be messaging out there about that, and you might use certain media channels for that. But there might be something else going on, like I don't know, say something that you're doing specifically for parents, let's just say, or colleges, or if your audience for those campaigns might be different, then it's okay if they're overlapping, because you might have a campaign running for parents and then you have a campaign running for school teachers, etc. So it's different audiences, so it doesn't matter, as long as it meets the objectives. And sometimes your campaign might be for 6 months, and that's okay. So then to have it overlap in quarters, but you just want to make sure that every month and every quarter you are having the review and just checking in on how it's performing. So that gives you the power to have sort of control over the performance.
Yeah. Okay.
Of your campaign.
All right, no more questions. Let's lastly say thank you so much for joining us, Vaishali. How can people reach you, or how can people work with you, or ask for your help, or contact you?
At the moment, we're putting a website together, so I don't have a website, but I'm going to put into the chat box my email address and my Instagram handle, so you can just message me on either, and I'm happy to answer any questions or support further.
Amazing. All right, great. Yeah, so you can do that, please, Charlie. That'd be great. Right, guys. So this is, as you know, it's being recorded, so this will be sent out early next week. You can obviously rewatch that sort of stuff. I might try and grab Vaishali's slides if possible to send out with that, if that's okay. Because I know obviously there's lots of information people might find quite useful to kind of revisit and go over and that sort of stuff. But all right, guys, we've got about 20 minutes before our next and final talk today. There's an ICAP member talk later, but the final talk of our main session is in 20 minutes time with Andrew Waters. If you want to go grab a quick cup of tea, grab some lunch if you want to, if you've got time, please do. Andrew hopefully will jump on by that point anyway, and I'll be on shortly before 12:30. But yeah, Vaishali, thank you so much for being a part today. Really, really important part of marketing is having a plan and bringing those things together. So I think you highlight that really, really well. So thank you so much. Alrighty, guys, I'll see you shortly.
Andy, can I drop off now? Did you want to have a?
Yeah, you're welcome to.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'll send you an email.
Thanks, Vaishali. Take care.
You too.
Alrighty, hi everyone. Hope you all had a chance to have a quick comfort break and grab a quick cup of tea or coffee. And we're going to get started in 2 or 3 minutes. I'm just going to check Andrew's here and his microphone's working. So Andrew, are you here?
Testing. Can you hear me, Andy?
There you are. How you doing?
Not too bad. How about you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Day has gone very, very well so far, and as was yesterday. So, Andrew, we'll give everyone a couple of minutes to jump on. I think people have gone off, and they'll probably jump back in at some point. So, we'll just sit tight for 2 minutes, and then I'll stop this slide sharing, jump back on my video, and introduce you. All right?
Sounds good to me.
Alrighty, welcome back, everyone. Hope you've had a good chance to grab a quick biscuit and cup of tea and have a comfort break. We're going to kick off our final session of the main event. There is one more session after this for ICAP members, which is on video marketing. But our final kind of main talk today with Andrew is going to kick off right now. And he comes from really good children's activity stock, should we say, for want of a better phrase. It's got some really good skin in our industry and in the game. And he's going to be talking about expansion. Title says going global, but Andrew's got experience kind of from all sorts of different levels of expanding activity businesses in both the UK and overseas, which is really interesting, really different vantage point in terms of what we're talking about over these 2 days in terms of marketing and kind of growth and that sort of thing. So, so Andrew, I'm gonna hand straight over to you. So feel free to kind of flick your switch on. There he is. And unmute yourself. And yeah, I'll let you introduce yourself and kind of, and I'm just going to sit back, enjoy the session like everyone else. All right.
Lovely. Can I share my screen? Have I got?
Yeah, should be able to.
Right, stuff. All right. Hi, everyone. So I don't know how we've done this before, whether anybody pipes up or whether it's sort of a silent audience in the background.
It's more of a silent audience vibe. We kind of keep the chat function going if people want to ask questions, or they can ask you questions at the end. But
okay. So as you see fit, if anybody's got anything that immediately springs to mind and you want to pipe up and interrupt, not a problem at all. Quite happy for that. So yeah, so as Andy mentioned, I'll talk a little bit about sort of my experience in the space. But as a topic, effectively what I'm going to talk about today is if you are interested in taking your brand overseas or have thought about doing it at some point, what are the things that you should consider? It's a huge topic, if I'm honest. And my background is more on sort of business development than marketing. So it's a bit of a mixed bag in terms of what we're going to talk about specifically for international expansion, but I'm going to try and do it with your brands in mind. So to be thinking about sort of your brand positioning. So as Andy mentioned, I've got a pretty rich pedigree, I suppose, in education and specifically in sort of the kids activity space. I hate putting up that number in some ways, 17 years, because it doesn't feel like 17 years, but I'll take it as a good thing. And all of it really has been, you know, outside of a couple of years I did sort of in the music industry in London, has been in the kids space. So education is something that's very dear to my heart, particularly working with children and around sort of extracurricular activities. So I started off my career out in Canada. I lived out there and I worked for a science provider for kids, which I'm sure many of you are aware of because they're pretty predominant in the UK as well, a group called Mad Science. So I spent 3 years with Mad Science and I looked after a lot of their international franchisees. So I had a cohort of franchises that I supported around the globe, and I helped them sort of set up and go into various different regions. As a business, they had 150 franchises, predominantly across US and Canada. And they've got about 100,000 kids in the program every week, so pretty big. Moved back to the UK, joined Pitman Training Group. So again, some of you will probably be aware of Pitman by the name. Adult education rather than kids stuff, but again, still the same sort of model. So these independent franchised training centres. So I was on the board there at Pitman. I was overseeing their business development and their product development, and specifically the international side. So I took Pitman into 10 countries, and over the years, I think they've been going since 1837, they've had more than 1 million students through the doors. So again, another bit of a big one. Stagecoach, I'll be surprised if any of you are not familiar with Stagecoach, given your backgrounds. A bit of a giant in the kids space in the UK. They're up to 2,000 schools now, about just over 50,000 children in their after school and their weekend clubs every week. And they are now in around 10 countries. My job there, again, I was part of senior management, so I was director of global business, and my responsibility was to Stagecoach overseas. Since leaving Stagecoach, set up my own firm, so Kindling Group is specifically intended to help small businesses to expand. So a lot of it is in the franchise space. That's sort of my background, but there's some crossover for those of you that aren't franchising. And really, I've done a huge amount in the UK. You know, a lot of brands that I've worked with are UK. I'm helping them with the UK growth, but again, a pretty rich pedigree of working globally. So I'm helping a lot of brands with their international expansion. One of whom that I'm working with as senior advisor right now is Finland Way. You're probably less familiar with them. They're not prevalent in the UK, but this is a Finnish preschool franchise brand. And I effectively am driving their international development. So that's my background. So pretty rich, pretty varied. From a global space, this is where I've worked. So every dot on that map is somewhere where I've launched a business or helped launch a franchise. And across sort of Canada and North America, it was looking a bit silly, so I've taken some out. But I've been really privileged. I've worked all over the world, and obviously the last year has been pretty different because I haven't been on the plane every month. But I've helped take kids' education brands into pretty much every one of these countries, and a broad spectrum of them. So if we're looking at the developed world, I've taken franchises into the US, Canada, UK, Singapore, Germany, Australia. So a lot of really big markets. A lot of really fast emerging markets, so Malaysia, India, Nigeria, China, and then some really niche, I guess, and untapped markets to some extent. So Zimbabwe, Palestine, Kuwait, Morocco, so various places, but spanning a lot of different sort of styles of economies and different cultures. So I have a lot of experience and I can help out anybody that would like some support around markets that they're looking to go into and they want to sort of understand some of the vagaries of doing so. So moving on then, before we can talk about sort of marketing and how you market your brand, I just wanted to explore some of the ways in which you can do it. So obviously, before you can start thinking about how you market your brand, you've got to start thinking about how you're actually going to get into a country. So there's half a dozen ways that I've listed here. This is probably not an exhaustive list, but I was thinking about sort of businesses that you have, and these are probably the ones that are most appropriate. So first one really is do it yourself. Set up what you're doing in the UK, pick a market, go there, build the same thing yourself. It's possible. It's very expensive, and you will probably struggle with local expertise in terms of your ability to do that. So I would imagine for most, this is probably not the best way to do it. You kind of need to be a big business with pretty deep pockets, of which some of you may well be in that place. Second one I've got is a partnership option. So this would be finding a local provider that might be doing something similar, or who has the network and the resources and wants to do something similar, and you go in with a joint venture. So you're going to set up a new company that effectively offers the same thing that you do, with a head office based out wherever you are, and you have a split of responsibilities as to what you're bringing to the party versus what the other guys are bringing to the party. If anybody has done business in China or is exploring doing business in China, or indeed wants to do business in China, this is the most common form of international expansion into China. For whatever reason, there's a little bit of legal side to it, but it seems to be what the Chinese entities want. They want to do this JV with a Western brand. Third point, I think this is appropriate to a lot of you guys, and I'm going to touch on this a bit more. So I imagine, and I can tell by some of the names, I know that some of you guys are franchised businesses. This is probably the most common way for sort of activity providers to go overseas, is to franchise or to license. So we'll explore that a little bit about what that could mean. Others of you may not be franchised, you might do everything yourself. This could still be relevant for you, because if you are thinking about international expansion, it may well be that you keep your UK business self-owned, but that a franchised option overseas is something of value to you. And then getting into slightly more niche stuff, but things that I've come across in this space, accreditations. So some of the brands that I've worked for have been asked by local companies in various countries to, can you put your stamp on what we do, to give it extra credibility? So that's something you could explore, much lighter touch. Similar vein is you can sell your product or your services to a company. And one that comes to mind on this is if you have a curriculum that you've developed and there is a company that does effectively what you do in another country but doesn't do it as well, you might find that you get someone that reaches to you and says, hey, I'd be really interested in taking your provision and sort of weaving it into what you do. Are you interested in just selling that part of what you do? Buyer beware, or rather seller beware on that, I would say, in terms of protecting your IP. But some do it, so white labeling what you've got, so that you're losing the fact that you're present, but you're getting a revenue stream from someone else. And then the last one, obviously, which has become pretty dominant over the last 12 months, is online. The borders are virtually non-existent in the global world now when it comes to online stuff. So there's no reason why you can't offer stuff overseas online. I would say, after having spent the last 15 or so months battling, as I'm sure many of you have, trying to run a business entirely online when you can't get into your classrooms, good luck monetizing this in a way that has long-term viability. I think what I've seen, and I'm sure many of you will echo, is that online is good, it adds value, but it cannot replace what you do in class, the magic of what you do yourselves. So those are different routes to market. I did say I was going to touch a little more on franchising, because I know that some of you guys are in this, and I do think this is the most appropriate route for a lot of you, even if you're not doing it. So in terms of franchising, broadly speaking, there are three ways in that you can go into a market: direct franchising, area development, and master franchising. Forgive me if you guys know this already, but a direct franchise would be where you're running your operation and you're just selling a region. So let's pick Canada, and you give someone the rights to a part of Toronto to run your program in Toronto, and that location reports directly to you. They pay you fees and all of that good stuff. That's direct franchising. It's you selling directly to someone. The second one is a tweak on that as a route forward, and that's called area development. Effectively, it's the same thing, except rather than selling someone the rights to a small part of Toronto, you're going to give them the rights perhaps to the whole of Ontario. But in exchange for it, they're going to have to open 20 locations over the next 10 years. So in that case, you're probably looking for, rather than your sort of traditional owner of one of your concepts, you're looking for a bigger business or a stronger business person that has the network, the financials, etc., and the ambition to be able to scale it up. And the third route, which is sort of highly sought after but difficult to find, but great if you can, is master franchising. So that is where you are, to all intents and purposes, you are recreating yourself in another country. So you are giving someone else the rights to be you. So they're going to take your brand. They may well run your concept themselves. And they will also have the rights to find new partners, bring them on, support them, and they will pay all of their royalties into that partner. So rather than having sort of a direct hand with all the guys in Toronto, you might have a master franchise in Canada that has all of these little subunits that are effectively sort of reporting up to them, and your relationship is directly with this larger entity. So they're your three routes forward on the franchise side. Licensing is also an option, and again is quite common. Main difference between franchising and licensing is franchising, typically what you're doing is someone is going to pay you a good chunk of money up front in order to buy the rights to do what you do. And you're going to give them pretty strict rules about how they go and do that. So, you know, there are ways that I'm sure you all have that you've built in your businesses that are absolutely sacrosanct. And for anybody coming in, that is the way that they have to do it, and they have to follow the manual. And in exchange, they're going to get an area of exclusivity where they have the rights to do it themselves. If that's the route that you're going down, then it's a franchise. If it's lighter touch, then it's probably licensing. So a good example of that would be, I'm sure everybody's well aware of Costa Coffee's sort of dominance in the UK and the way they've grown. So there are obviously branded Costa Coffee stores on pretty much every high street in the UK. But if you go to a lot of pubs, or did pre-COVID, or I don't know, leisure centres or whatever, you may well see behind the bar that they are selling Costa Coffee. So they're not a Costa franchise, but they've licensed the rights to offer the product in their premises, but outside of the Costa brand. So that is something that we did in Malaysia with Pitman as a way of sort of expanding into that market. But I'm going to come back to that in a little bit. Okay. So some considerations. I'll be really curious, and I'd really like to speak to some of you guys afterwards as well. So if you have questions and you have gone overseas or you're considering, I'd really like to know sort of what you've done so far and challenges that you've faced. All I'd say on this is that this is a massive decision. And I've been doing this for sort of 17 years, and I've made mistakes on the way, as everybody has. And there are things that I've learned from that, of course, we'd never do now, but it felt like the best thing at the time. And what a lot of businesses do is they grow globally without being a strategic decision. So usually it's someone waving a check. It's someone going, hey, I'd love to take your concept and run this in Sao Paulo. And yeah, I've got the money, I'll do it. And all of a sudden that starts sounding really appealing. It's like, okay, well, that could be cool. You know, we get to go out to Sao Paulo, and it's an amazing way to build the brand, and it looks great if we've got an extra dot on the map somewhere else. And lo and behold, you do it, and you end up with one location in Sao Paulo. And then someone else comes along and says, oh, I'm going to do it in Bangkok. And you're like, well, that sounds really cool too. I'd quite like to go to Bangkok. And you end up then with these weird little flags planted on maps all over the place. But you haven't really considered the repercussions of doing so and how you support them. So these are some of the things that you should consider. And my ethos really is not about flag planting, and a lot of businesses do this. It's about considered strategic growth. I would rather go into 1 or 2 countries outside of the one that I'm in and end up with another 50 locations in each than going to 50 different countries. because it will cost you infinitely more money in terms of all the things that you're going to have to look after to do that. So when it comes to your brand, then all of you, I assume most of you are brand owners. You're going to be very proud of and very careful of your brand. Taking that, even in the UK, as you expand, it's challenging, you know, and not everyone treats it with the same care and the same love that you've put into it. So these are things that you kind of got to take into account. When you take that overseas, that grows so exponentially beyond what you could imagine. And it depends from region to region. So if you're talking about operating in, I don't know, Germany or Canada or Australia, there are some risks. Of course, there are some risks, but we're relatively similar in terms of business cultures. The legal infrastructure is there to protect you. Most businesses operate above board, and you're probably absolutely fine. As you start spreading further afield, some of those safety nets disappear. And that's not to say that don't think further afield and think in more exotic locations, but just go into it sort of eyes wide open. So the first thing you're really going to have to consider is obviously protecting your brand. So getting your trademark registered in each country that you go into, and making sure that you put the right provisions in place to protect your intellectual property. This can be hugely expensive, like hugely expensive. Depends country to country, the cost of trademark registration. But in Dubai, for instance, which is somewhere that's quite appealing to lots of people for a lot of reasons, astronomical costs to register your IP there. And you should be doing that as sort of par for the course of going in. So any money you're making from going in is going to quickly get burnt on things like this. So it's expensive to put in place. And actually, it's really hard to police. So I don't know many brands that have actually bothered trying to enforce protecting their IP once they've gone in there. You know, you take it to an overseas country, you find someone is doing something that you didn't want to do against your brand. You've got all the legal framework in place. Are you realistically going to go to court in this country and fight this battle with the costs and the lack of knowledge you've got locally? For most small brands, it's just not possible. So it's more about prevention than sort of trying to police it afterwards. Cultural and political sensitivities. So how realistic is it that your brand fits nicely into the market that you're going into? It may well do absolutely fine, but I'd be surprised that you wouldn't have to make some changes to the brand. And I'll give you a good example of this. So Stagecoach operates in Germany, and you would think that the German culture and the British culture are relatively similar, and they are relatively similar. But there was some brand research that was done first, and Stagecoach's strap line is creative courage for life, which is a lovely ethos, and it's quite evocative, and I think parents kind of get it. When that was taken to Germany, the whole idea of sort of courage, when it was translated, it came across quite confrontational in terms of the way that it was perceived by German parents. And German education is much more at the early years is around play, and the idea of this sort of competition and courage and that just it didn't fit with what German parents wanted. So the strap line was changed there to play on the stage of life. So it was much more sort of play based, which was much more in keeping with what the German people would expect. So not a huge sweeping change, but an important one to make nonetheless. So there are lots of things like that. As you get into further east, particularly in some of the Muslim markets, you have to start thinking about the way the brand is positioned, some of the imagery that you use. You have some very conservative markets, and is what you've got appropriate for the way that they work? Just things to consider. Language and translation. This is a big consideration. Obviously, if you're going into an English-speaking market, not a massive issue, though you'd be surprised, even going into Canada, just some of the odd words here and there that are spelt with a Z instead of an S in North America. Things like that, you're getting it wrong. Local consumers spot it, and it makes you look sort of out of touch. So take that into a market where English isn't the first language, and you've got quite a bit of work to do on translation, because it's not just about getting the words right, it's about getting the message right behind it. And I'll come back to Stagecoach in Germany is another good example. So Stagecoach had a campaign with a lovely picture of a kid effectively sort of roaring, and it was about I used to lack confidence, but shyness can eat my pants. I think it was what it was. When that was translated into German, it was shyness can lick my underwear, was the direct translation. So the words were right, but obviously the meaning behind it very different, and not really the message that you kind of wanted to get across. So the advertising then became, but now I roar like a lion. So same sort of thinking behind it, but things that you need to just consider. Loss of control. This is a really big one, and this is a big one that's difficult to get over. As you spread further afield, you're going to lose that ability to control and police the way that your brand is being used. People may do it with the best of intentions, but I've seen it even in the UK, where you get people who go, no, but I like this color better, so I'm going to use this color. Or I don't like the way you've changed your marketing material, so I'm going to stick to the old logo. Or I don't like the new campaign. I've got a new campaign that I'm going to run myself. So all of these things, if you're aware of it, you can police it and you can try and keep the brand on track. When you're going overseas, and if you're running your business in locations where you are physically not, your ability to see that and see the things that are going on is diluted significantly. Particularly because we're in an internet age here, and a lot of your marketing that you're going to be doing is on the internet, social media, web pages, digital campaigns. You can police that relatively easily in the UK. Once you get overseas, where maybe the internet is not the predominant way of marketing, your ability to see what's going on there is greatly inhibited. Value of your marketing messages. So in terms of what you're doing, we talked about sort of the message itself, but the channels, it can be very different. I'll talk a little bit about China, if anybody's done business there. Trust me, the way that you market in China is nothing like the UK. It is an entirely different beast, and is an absolute mystery to me. And I've been trying to do business in China for years. Unless you are working with Chinese specialists, you are an absolute hiding to nothing. And the last thing really about your brand is beware the dilution of your brand. What you will often get is, when you go to a new country, you're going to get asked, this is great, we really like this, but actually in Malaysia, in India, this is how we do it. Can we just tweak this just a little bit? Can we just change that just a little bit? Because that's not what the local population expects. And that's fine. 17 years of experience have shown that if you take your business model as it is right now and you try and drop that into a new country, it won't work. If you do it wholly as it is, you're going to have to make adaptations. But at what point do those adaptations mean that you're no longer the brand that you wanted to be in the first place? And again, I can give you some stories a little bit later about some of the things that I've seen around that. So if I made this all sound horribly unappealing and taking your brand overseas, it's not my intent. I love working overseas, and I think there's an amazing opportunity for a ton of brands, particularly in the education space, and particularly if you're a British brand. The cachet around having a kids education brand, including all your extracurricular stuff from the UK, is absolutely massive. There is such an appetite for British education still, and in lots of markets. Obviously, the Commonwealth, where there's that historic link, there's huge kudos on British education. So why is that? In a lot of markets, you will find that there is a great deal of competition, particularly, well, in a number of different ways. You take a market like the US, which is highly competitive, you're going to have a lot of very good quality, very high-end brands doing very similar things. So there's a lot of competition there. So it's a way to differentiate yourself. In more emerging markets, you're probably going to have, again, you might have the same glut of brands doing the same thing, but they're all doing it with local brand, local affiliation, local qualifications, local teachers, etc. So anything that these companies can do in order to give themselves a head start on the competition is really sought after. So you get a lot of education brands that come up with British names. You know, I've worked all across sort of Middle East, India, Sri Lanka. There's a million things that are called Oxford Centre of, or the British School of, whatever, with absolutely no ties to Britain. So if you can go there with genuinely something that is Western and British, it will elevate that for your partner locally and give you a massive head start over the local competition. The other thing that I've seen, and this comes up and has come up in virtually everyone that I've worked on, is English language. And I don't know if there's any of you brands that are language organizations, but even if you're not, I don't think I've worked for a company yet where I haven't had a discussion with someone overseas who said, can we use your concept? Can we do what you're doing? But can we also do it as a way to weave in English language teaching for our students as well? You know, we kind of want the lessons to be in English, and the kids are doing the activities, but they also come out of it with some English skills. So that's a good example of, hey, why not? If it works, it's great. But at what point do you start diluting it? And actually the program that you're running is no longer about what you're doing. It's now sort of a slightly bastardized English language course. Okay. So one of the things that I try and think about, and if you're thinking strategically and you're looking about where are we taking our brand and how we're going to position it over there, is do your thinking ahead of time and actually figure out where you want to go and why you want to go there. And one of the things that I do, and I do this on a small level when we're looking at a single unit and why would this person want to open one of my businesses, right the way up to why would we need this in this country? Why is my business going to work in this country? And that is pain points. What is the issue that your business fixes? And I'll give you a good example here in China. So when I was at Stagecoach, I reckon we got an inquiry a week from China to take the business out there from some really big players. And we never did. We did a pilot there, but other than that, we pushed back just because of the complexity of the market out there and trying to get it right, and positioning it and making sure that we were doing it strategically and with the right approach. So one of the things that's happened in China, and you guys might have seen it or you might not have known it, there has been a shift in government policy in China in the last couple of years. And the Chinese government has identified that China is taking over the world and they're using their financial muscle and their political might to spread their influence everywhere. And academia in China is hugely important. Every family feels the need to spend a fortune on their children, and every child must be spending every minute of their day doing something to enhance their ability to grow. So tutoring or violin or piano or English or whatever it is. But what the Chinese government has realized is that what that is doing is actually creating a whole load of kids that are really badly suited for the real world. And that's where I think brands like yours really fit in. Because what the Chinese government has said is, we need soft skills. We need children that are better rounded individuals and have learned self-confidence and ability to think for themselves, an ability to engage with other kids, to be able to speak to grown-ups respectfully, but with enthusiasm, whatever. And the academic approach in China is failing on that. So government decree in China was, fix this. You need to be doing this. And what happened was, the reaction in China was, we don't know how to do that. This is not the way that we have taught for the last generation in China. We learn by rote. So how do we change this? So what they've done is they've gone out to the West, gone, well, this is a bit that you guys are good at, so come and do it for us. So we got an approach, like I said, every week from someone saying, hey, can we just buy Stagecoach and just drop it in because you guys are really good at creating confident kids? And that's what we want. So this was a big macro issue in China, which was driving sort of the micro stuff that we were seeing, which was great. The challenge that you had was a market that was wholly unprepared for it. And how do you then expand as a brand in China to fit that? So we could have sold Stagecoach into China infinite number of times over. But I'm sure you guys all know the real heart of what you do is your teachers or whoever it is that's delivering the lessons. It's the engagement with the kids. It's the magic that happens in the classroom. And that can't be just put into a manual or a book that you can sell to someone. And that's what they wanted in China, was just give us the manual. We can give that to our teachers, and lo and behold, we'll teach kids how to be better at being children. What we were saying was no, because what we're doing is we're training teachers to be great teachers, and it's the package of the materials and the brilliance of the teachers that's doing that. But you haven't got that in China. There's no practice in that. So it's almost a generational gap where you kind of go train the trainer in order to sort of be able to train the back end of the market. So long-winded story, but that's the sort of thing that I'm always looking for a market as to why I would want to go and do it. On the flip side, so I've seen others where demand looks like it's there, but when you scrape under the surface, it's not really. I'll pick on the Asian markets again, and I'm making a huge sweeping generalization here, so apologies for that. But the traditional sort of approach in a lot of Eastern Asian countries is, again, academia is really important, and all of these soft skills is needed. So that bit's kind of got through. But the reality for the local customer is that they don't quite believe it. And you can take your concept and you can do it and you can deliver it really well. But to a parent who's watching it, they just like, it just looks like the kids are just messing around. Like, where's the formal qualification that they're going to get? How is this helping them progress to university and beyond? And unless you're sort of tackling that, it's just not going to be accepted over there. So this is, again, where you come back to that challenge of, right, well, we can drop a qualification in there, but is it really what we're about? You know, or is the heart of what we do, it sticks to what it is, about the interaction in the class. And no, there's no tangible step forward for you to go to university because the kid's 5 years old, but actually it's going to help him grow and he'll be a better individual and he'll be a happy child and he'll develop. And lo and behold, you know, by the time he gets to that age, all of the rounded skills that the kid needs to be a well-rounded and well-developed adult are there. Unless that's sort of tangible in Asia and they can kind of put a stamp on it, the parents are not that comfortable with it. So you might see on the face of it that it looks good, but scratch under the surface, not necessarily. Last point I wanted to talk about here really was about markets that you're going into. So if you're thinking about where will consumers want my brand, where will I fit in, hey, the world's your oyster. You can go anywhere. And there are two extremes to it. You could go, I'm going to go to the US because it's the holy grail and it's going to be easier because they understand us, we understand them, language is the same, and my concept's just going to fit there because, hey, you know, kids still like to dance or kids like to play sports, whatever, which is great. But you're then competing in the most competitive market in the world with providers that have been doing it for years and probably have a budget that far exceeds yours, and the legal fees of getting in, et cetera, et cetera. So it's not necessarily a bad idea, but it's a challenge. Alternative is you can pick a market where, hey, there's no one there yet. And it might be because that's a really difficult place to go and do business. But the flip side of that is you get to be the first to market. So I took an education and business to Palestine. And Palestine is a really hard place to do business. You know, it's, for many years, it's been a pariah because of, you know, the political circumstances there. When we went and launched there, the buzz from having a British brand that went out there, you know, I went and did a presentation with the national government there and met with the PLO, and, you know, we did speeches with all the little flags and everything. Such a big deal, you know, for effectively just launching a franchise out there. And it was the fastest launch we'd ever had because there was nothing like that. And in terms of the pent-up demand, it was extraordinary. So I'm not suggesting you all go and start selling in Palestine, but there is opposite ends of the scale to which you can play it. So then marketing, so local sales and marketing, and some of the things that you need to consider. I've talked a little bit about some of these, but I'll go into a little bit more detail. One thing that is absolutely guaranteed, you will need to change your approach to marketing to a greater or lesser extent. So Germany, we talked about some to some extent. Germany is an interesting one in that when we had business out there and we had about 12 locations, I think it was, we were really struggling to get the local partners to invest in digital advertising out there. And I don't know about you guys, but that's where all of the money that we spend on advertising is done now, is digital, Google, 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 Google. Germany is a massively developed country in many ways, but there's still a lot of paper advertising, still a lot of magazines, still a lot of newspaper stuff. So unless you kind of know that, then your marketing is not quite in sync. The other thing to think about in Germany is no one uses credit cards. Like the idea of taking something that you haven't paid for in full up front is entirely alien to Germany. So having a campaign where you're pushing people to your website to pay on credit card and stuff doesn't work, doesn't exist over there. Digital marketing in China, I touched on this earlier. There is a Chinese equivalent of every app and every famous one that you can imagine. So there's a Chinese Facebook and WhatsApp and Google and Instagram. And they're all names that you'll have never heard of, but will probably be bigger than the Western alternative. And they don't work the same. They don't look the same. WeChat, which is the equivalent of WhatsApp, that effectively works as Facebook too. But you will have sort of almost like your own website on WeChat. All of the shopping is done via WeChat. So if you want to do business in China, you need to have a local expert that knows how to do that. You're setting up in China, your website won't look anything like a Western website. You can't just use your template, translate it and put it into Chinese. The whole setup, the whole way it looks is different. There's also something there called the Great Wall of China. Right, Great Wall of China, you obviously know that, sorry. The Great Firewall of China. And effectively that is a block on foreign websites coming into China. It's all goes through this firewall to make sure that the content is safe. And what happens is there's a massive slowdown. So if you're trying to advertise in China via your own website based in the UK, the load up speeds are just going to make it unworkable. So things you need to know about. Pitman, when we went into Malaysia, Nigeria, some of the other sort of countries, particularly old colonies, in the Commonwealth, there was this massive demand that, right, we've got our website, we need our marketing materials, we've got our certification, we need more flags, more Union Jack, more Britishness. Can we have Churchill? Can we have that? It was, how British can you make it? Because that's what the customer wanted. Also a lot of business in Ireland. So we started changing some of, we'll put a certificate, we'll put a British flag behind the logo and stuff. And the Irish franchisees were like, absolutely unequivocally not. This can't sell us something that's British. This needs to feel like it's Irish. And the same in the US. We kind of want it to be as American as apple pie. So different markets are going to demand different things. And you've got to kind of think about where things fit well. And the final one I wanted to talk about was just about a way of expanding into countries proactively. So I know a lot of us, when we're looking at growing a business, you get those magic emails or that call, and it's the perfect candidate you've been looking for to help you grow your business. So we picked a country, we went to Morocco, and took a proactive approach to growing the business. So we did research with the local embassy and Business Finland in Rabat, and identified the 100 best education providers in Morocco. And we reached out to every one of them with a specific campaign, specific rules, specific everything, dedicated solely for Morocco, with the intent of opening as many preschools across the country as possible. What came back was, I think we got about 20 responses from the 100, so pretty good for a cold call. There are 11 discussions progressing now in the various cities about opening up. And by the end of this year, there will be 7 preschools, I think, in Morocco. 5 are already confirmed and are either open or are open before the end of the year. So this was just strategically thinking about the market, going in, taking that step, finding the partner that you want to work with rather than hoping that partner comes to you. Sorry, I know I'm whizzing through this, but I know I'm conscious of time. Last thing I really wanted to touch on was, if this is of interest to anybody and anybody wants to talk more, of course, reach out to me, I'll give you my contact details. If you are interested in doing it, there's some free government money to help you do it. So Department of International Trade has made up to £9,000 available for any English company. Apologies if anyone's not based in England. But effectively what that is it's match funding. So for every £1,000 that you put in, they will give you £1,000 back to spend. And that can be done on a number of different things, which I can help you sort of hone for you. But I thought it was just worth pointing out because if you don't use it, someone else will. So that's it, really. That's a whistle-stop tour, and I've covered a lot of ground, I know. But like I said, I'm really interested in sort of your thoughts. If anybody wants to contact me afterwards, that's my website if you want to read a bit more about what I do. And that's obviously my contact details in terms of my personal email. But I will open it up to the floor. Any questions or any comments, any thoughts?
Andrew, that's amazing. Thank you so much. And it's really interesting. As you know, I work as a franchise consultant too, and I've got some skin in the international space with Little Kickers and a few of my clients now who are doing it. And I'd echo the pain points of going international. Not completely impossible, as you know, as you've demonstrated with your experience, but yeah, currently we're trying to do something with one of my clients to go into China. It's bordering insanity, but you know, we may get there, right? But yeah, look, I think obviously people listening to this, some of you guys might be may well be, you know, thinking about international in the future. So it's always worth reaching out. Andrew, if I can get you to stop screen sharing for a second, and just, can you just type in your email address and website in that chat function? It might be just easier for people to just jump on that.
Yeah, no worries at all.
And what I'll do is when this recording goes out, guys, we'll I'll put a link obviously to Andrew's website, which I have done already with the join event pages, join event emails that come out, and you guys can reach out to Andrew, I suppose. Quick question from, I was going to say from me first, but Jessica's got on here. What do you think is the safest, easiest way? Should we jump back to it? What do you think is the safest / easiest way to go overseas if you're a UK franchise to put your toe in the water?
Pick your country carefully would be my advice first. And the reason for that is the cost of market entry is massively variant depending on the country that you're going into. So the UK has one of the most light touch franchise industries in terms of the legalities behind it. So no franchise disclosure, pretty easy to set up a business and away you go. If you go to the US, for instance, in order to sell your business in the US, you have to register your franchise agreement in all 50 states, along with a franchise disclosure document, which explains all about your country, all about your company. And I would put the cost of doing that at around about 100,000 just to do the legals. So my advice is don't dip your toe in the water in the US. If you want to do it, there are lots of markets which are relatively close. Europe's really good for that. Some of whom have little to no franchise legislation other than having a good franchise agreement, where English is widely spoken. They'll happily do business and all your materials can remain in English. I'm thinking of the Netherlands or Scandinavia. No worries, dead easy to do something around there. There are others which are much harder. Spain, for whatever reason, has quite difficult franchise legislation. So there's no rhyme and reason to this. In terms of dipping your toe in, like I said at the start, pick 1 or 2 markets and do it with a bit of a plan. But don't try and do it so you've got 1 location in each. Hopefully that's an answer to the question. But if you're interested, if you want specifics as to your brand and where you might want to go into, drop me an email and I can give you some that I know are good markets and why.
Alrighty, another question from Joseph. If selling digital products only abroad, do you need to franchise / have legal arrangements in place?
I'm far from a lawyer in terms of digital stuff. I don't believe so, is the honest truth. I think you're probably bound by the laws of the country that you're in, and you're effectively providing a service to people outside of the UK. But I don't think there's any kind of agreement required. So no, I don't believe so.
Alrighty. All right, great stuff, guys. Right, you can see that Andrew's put the website in there and his email address too. Like I said, when this recording goes out, there'll also be another link to his website and again, contact details there. Andrew, look, thank you so much for being a part of today. A completely different vantage point from what we've spoken about already. With obviously, there's some overlap with marketing. I really personally enjoyed the case studies, actually, what you were speaking about as well. Kind of echoed some of my background and made me chuckle actually sometimes, to be honest with you, thinking of stories that I won't share myself. But yeah, look, thank you so much for being a part of today. Guys, if you want to reach out to Andrew, please do. This is the final session today, guys. If you're an ICAP member watching this, there is one more session at 1:30. And there's a different link for that. So I'm going to end this session now. Thank you for joining us. If you are an ICAP member, like I said, jump back to your email that was sent through this morning, different link to that one, and that's on video marketing in about 15 minutes. All right, guys, have a lovely weekend to all of you. Recordings will be sent out next week, and I'll speak to you all soon. Cheers, guys.
Thank you, guys. Just to say, if anybody's interested, I obviously do a lot of work in the UK, and I've got a lot of space experience in the same space. So if there is anything you want to talk about your UK business, I'm more than happy to touch base on that as well.
Great, fabulous. Thanks, Andrew. Cheers, guys.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Have a nice weekend.